What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, coming to you on a holiday Monday. How is everybody doing? Thank you so much for joining me to break down UFC Vegas 28. We've had a week off. It's been awful. It's taken way longer than any week should because I'm a degenerate and I got to have my MMA action. How's everybody doing this evening? We've got Peter Cirillo in the chat. We've got Diamond Hands, Hammurabi, JSG, The Grateful Dude, Muhammad Boston. We've got the Gaming Wolf 87, Spencer Skag, Snooty 3000, Dan Goldstein. We have got the Chronic Combat Conversations, and Sav Dimitri Sped. Everybody is here. How's everybody doing this evening? Thank you so much for spending some holiday time with me. Y'all know me. The show must go on. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas Eve on a Monday. Well, it might matter if it was Christmas Eve, but I'm always going to be here doing the damn show for you on Monday, talking some MMA betting action. Now, it does happen to be Memorial Day in the United States, so I do just want to remind everybody that today's the day that we are grateful to the men and women of service who have given their lives, that we've got the freedoms. So I've got the freedom to sit my fat ass in this chair and talk to you about people that go out and fight for a living. That's what today is all about. So we do want to make sure we send out all the gratitude and good vibes to the people that have lost their lives, and of course the people that they left behind. So thank you so much for anybody who has been a part of that, and of course the families of the people who are still here. Just wanted to say thank you all one more time. We actually had a pretty badass degenerate evening last Saturday, did some crushing in the NHL. The degenerate action for tonight, we're on the first period draw for Montreal and Canadiens. It's 0-0 right now with 7 minutes left in the first, so we're getting close on that one. We've got the full game draw. It's plus 325, so if it's tied up going into overtime again, it's already done that twice. That's a good spot that we like today. I'm on the Islanders. I cannot stop it. I cannot help myself. They're plus 170. They shouldn't be that big of an underdog. Everybody's all over the Bruins. I like to go against the grain. So that's my action. Follow me on Twitter if you want to see the rest of it. I tweeted out all my goal scorer props and shit like that. So head on over at Die Hard MMA Pod on Twitter if you want to do that. Now, without further ado, we've got a big card. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. And I have a special guest for you this evening. We have got an absolute beast, a badass in the MMA handicapping community who is doing nothing but taking the bookies to work. My guy, Lucrative MMA, is joining us on the show today to break down the card. Lucrative, what's going on, man?
What's up, Clint? Happy to be here. Thanks for that introduction. That's what we're about, right? You know what I mean? The bookies make enough money as it is, so what we're trying to do is take back just a little piece, you know. They've got enough anyway, so we're trying to take back a little piece and hopefully breaking down some fights today with you. We've got about 14 or 15 fights, so hopefully we'll get some good spots. And us, me, you, and everybody listening can make some of that money back from the bookies.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about. We don't have to be in a pissing contest. We can all work together. It's us versus them. It's not us versus each other. So you hit the nail on the head, man. I love it. And it's been too long. I'm happy to finally have you up on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. It's been too long for me not being on the show, and it's been too long with no fights. 7 days feels like 70 days to us, you know. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, man, let's dig straight on into this thing. We're kicking the night off with a lightweight fight. We've got Claudio Puelles. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but he's taking on Jordan Leavitt. Y'all may remember him as the Monkey King. Claudio is 10-2. Leavitt is undefeated, 8-0. Claudio is one of these guys that hasn't fought since the COVID break. He's been off since 2019. He's only 25 years old. So that's one thing I want to throw in your mind straight away, is that honestly, we should be expecting improvements from this kid. He's a BJJ brown belt. He likes to move well on the outside. Lots of kicks. He throws lots of kicks from the outside, front kicks up the middle, and he looks to change levels pretty much always. We've got a grappler versus grappler type of situation here. Neither of these guys stand out to me very well on the feet. And you may recall the last fight Claudio had in the UFC. He was getting his ass kicked by Silva and had a Hail Mary comeback knee bar deep in the third round. So he needs to have put some real work in during the offseason, because he's one of these guys that may well have lost his spot with the UFC. COVID may have actually been a benefit for this kid. Jordan Leavitt, I'll be completely honest, man. I am still not sold on this kid. The slam knockout that he's coming off of, it's a slam over an elderly fighter. Seems a bit fluky to me. I don't think we should expect that kind of a performance from him always. He is solid on the ground, but again, he's just like his opponent. He's got a strong top game. He is explosive. He is athletic, but his striking is really a work in progress. I don't know if Leavitt should be as big of a favorite as he is. He's minus 200. The comeback is on Claudio plus 170. I do kind of side with the favorite here on this one, but we might end up with a shitty kickboxing fight. So I'm not sure I want to bet on this fight. How do you feel about this one, man?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And I'm pretty surprised that you say that, you know, the line may be a little bit too wide in the favor of Jordan Leavitt, because all I've seen over Twitter in the last few weeks is that Puelles, however you pronounce it, is one of the worst fighters in the UFC. Leavitt should be a huge favorite. I kind of disagree. I don't really like both fighters. You know, I don't think either fighter is very high level. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because we see the UFC is pushing this Jordan Leavitt quite a bit. And we see that they push these fighters sometimes. And it's kind of strange because, you know, we've seen Chase Hooper be pushed. Obviously, Sage Northcutt got pushed a few years back. Jordan Leavitt gets pushed. I would expect them to push the fighters who can go on and do big things in the UFC, you know, in terms of title challenges and stuff. I don't think Leavitt's that guy, man. Leavitt's not a very good fighter, right? He's got some hype around him. And I guess the reason they push these fighters is because not just of what they do in the octagon, but also because of who they are, right? Jordan Leavitt's a pretty strange guy. He's called the Monkey Man, Monkey King, something like that. He's very, if you've ever watched his tape, he's very unorthodox on the feet. He'll do this, you know, he'll put his hand up like a karate stance,
very
like
awkward.
He's doing Tai Chi or something. And to be honest, I think that's just one of the reasons he does that is obviously to disguise his strikes, but also just because he's not very good at striking, man. I mean, this guy is a grappler. He's an out-and-out grappler. He's not very good on the feet. Look, if this is a kickboxing contest, this should be minus 110 apiece, man. In fact, I might even make Claudio a slight underdog, slight favorite, especially with the fact that he is a young dude. He should be making improvements. I do agree with you there. At the end of the day, guys, this is a low-level fight. I don't think Leavitt's very good. Leavitt will be found out at some point. He will be knocked out. Claudio is also not a very good fighter. I'm going to side with Jordan Leavitt. I'm going to say he should be maybe like a 60% favorite, which is minus 150. But I don't think it should be anything more. At the end of the day, I'm going to go with Jordan Leavitt to get the takedowns. I do think he's better, slightly better wrestler. I do think he's better on the ground. He's better scrambler. He's a better submission fighter. And yeah, he'll probably be able to put Puelles away here. Hopefully he does it early in the first round. Hopefully he gets another viral meme knockout or a submission like he did last time. And then hopefully that, you know, the hype is still on him and maybe we can get a good line on someone half decent when he fights next. But yeah, I'm going with Leavitt for the win, but nothing too convicted here.
I feel you. And I'm glad you mentioned the wrestling because I think that's a valid point. I do think that he is the better wrestler of the two. And we've seen both of these guys are willing to kind of play off their back and play that jiu-jitsu game. And that just doesn't go well on the scorecards. So even if Leavitt doesn't end up getting a submission victory, that top control is going to win him some kind of a decision. And if we get that shitty kickboxing match, then this is a real coin flip. We have no idea what's going to happen if these guys decide they want to avoid the grappling.
Yeah, man, completely agree.
All right, so we're early in agreement here. Value probably on Claudio, but we're both thinking Leavitt finds a way to get the W, and we get some additional value. Hopefully, the next time out, maybe we can take our stab at fading the Monkey King. Next fight up, we've got a featherweight battle between Sean Woodson and Youssef Zalal, two of the hottest prospects in the division, man. Woodson, this guy is all boxing. He's so tall for the division. He's long. He's got excellent pop on his punches, a long jab, and that volume is ridiculous. He averages 6.4 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 4.4. So he is outpacing his opponents on the feet by 2 full significant strikes per minute. That's hard to do. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here, and he also has a 77% takedown defense rating. Now, he hasn't fought anybody stellar in the UFC so far. His competition level has been a little bit questionable, but Youssef Zalal is a guy that likes to be elusive, play the outside, mix in the takedowns. Man, I see a lot of people. There's a lot of people thinking that Youssef Zalal is the side here, should be the favorite, shouldn't be a dog. And I got to side with the favorite. It's favorite or pass for me again, because I just don't know if Youssef Zalal is going to be able to get inside. He might be the better striker. He probably is the better grappler, but I don't know if he can get the takedown against that 77% takedown defense. And when they're on the feet, he's going to play at range. And if he's playing at range, he's not going to be able to get past that 6 inches. So I feel like Woodson's got a significant advantage here on the feet. And I feel like he's probably going to work his way to a decision, because we don't really see anybody put Youssef Zalal away. I'm kind of feeling Woodson by decision. What's your read on this one?
Yeah, I disagree a little bit here. I think that Zalal is the side because of the odds we're getting, right? So I think it opened up something like, I remember seeing Zalal about a plus 180, right? And instantly that jumped out of the page at me. I looked at the odds like I do every single week. I look at all of the odds that are released straight away, right? For the upcoming cards for 2-3 months in the future. If we get odds that early, we rarely do, but some of the big fights we do. And I tried to see any odds range that I think, you know, potentially I disagree with, and then I do the tape. And this one stood out on the page for me, right? I feel like Woodson is pretty unproven. Zalal is also fairly unproven in the UFC. And I dug into it a little bit more, right? I started doing the film research. And what I can see is that, yeah, I believe that Woodson is probably a better striker. So his boxing is a lot more crisp. We did see Zalal struggle with the boxing of his last opponent. I'm not exactly sure the dude he fought. I can't remember the name of it. Was it Sung Woo Choi? It possibly was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was who Zalal fought last?
Yeah, Zalal. So he struggled with the boxing there, right? And he couldn't really get the takedowns. And, you know, that's why he lost the fight ultimately. And it could be the same here, because obviously Woodson, as you said, very good boxer. He does have a good knee up the middle as well. We saw him get a knockout on the Contender Series with that knee up the middle. So, you know, he's adapting his game to be more MMA oriented, because he knows guys are going to shoot the takedown on him. And one thing I have noticed about Woodson is that he's got great takedown defense if you try to traditionally take him down, right? So if you push him up against the cage, he's a very tall guy. Tall people are notoriously good at defending takedowns, especially against the cage, right? So Zalal has to be a little bit tricky here if he does want to get Woodson to the ground, which I believe he will need to if he wants to win the fight. He's not going to win a 15-minute range fight. I think he can be fairly close because of Zalal's movement, but I do think he will lose that battle. So he's going to need to go for the takedowns, right? What he needs to do, in my opinion, is he needs to be a bit tricky. I've seen Woodson be taken down with trips, with like sweeps, and just tricky things. You know, people like can cut an angle on him, jump on the back, as opposed to traditionally taking him down. And I do believe Zalal is a pretty cerebral fighter. He's pretty clever. He's at a decent camp. I believe they will have the game plan. I think they will have seen what I have seen, right? Maybe don't go for the traditional single legs, chain wrestle against the fence. Maybe try and be a little bit sneaky in the way you get the fight to the ground. Now, if he does get to the ground, I think Woodson's going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble, because, yeah, Woodson's got good takedown defense, in my opinion, but he hasn't got good ground defense. So if he does get taken down, then he's kind of like a fish out of water. I mean, we see him choked out in his last fight against Rosa. If I remember incorrectly, that was more of like, you know, an attrition submission. He was very tired at that point. But I have seen him dominated when he got taken down on Dana White's Contender Series. So he's not a good ground fighter. I think Zalal has a huge edge on the ground, and I believe Zalal via submission is like plus 1,200 at the moment. I think that line is pretty crazy, because if it does get there, I do give Zalal a decent chance of submitting him, like Dan says down there. And look, at the end of the day, I just believe that this fight is kind of predicated on if Zalal can get the takedowns. If Zalal gets the takedowns, I'm fairly confident in saying he wins the fight, man. If he doesn't get the takedowns, I don't think it's a complete blowout on the feet. So for that reason, I have to say that the line is pretty wide, and I think the line should be... I have to favor Zalal here, man. I think Zalal actually should be about a minus 125 favorite. Maybe you want to make it a pick'em. Maybe you want to make it a minus 110 pick'em. But at the end of the day, I just think the line is way off, and I have took a shot on Zalal because, as you know, if the line's off, you should probably take a shot, you know, especially if the line's off this much. So I'm picking Zalal outright, and I've obviously got a bet on him because of where the current line is at. I wouldn't be surprised to see Woodson win the fight, stop the takedowns, and win a decision, but I'm going with Zalal. More UFC experience, and I just think the path is there for him.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, man, anytime you think the line is backwards, if there's a dog, you should be the favorite. That's the spot that we dream of, right? That's all you can ask for. So I don't mind it, especially if that's your read. And I totally understand. I do think that the Zalal is levels above Woodson on the floor. The big question is, can he get it there? And I'm not sure that he can. So this is a spot that I'm going to wish you luck on your bet. I'm a huge fan of Youssef Zalal. I want to see him do well, but I kind of side with the favorite, and I think it's very takedown dependent. That sub prop, though, I don't hate that, because if he does get it to the floor, I've been on that sub prop a couple times, man. He's been this close to sinking it in more than once, and he's just had people that were slightly too savvy, slightly too slick on the floor to get it done. So if he does get Woodson to the ground, that's definitely his best path to victory. I'll give you that for sure. All right. So a little disagreement there on the second fight. We're going to roll right along here. Women's flyweight fight, Montana De La Rosa taking on Ariane Lipski. We've got De La Rosa 11-6-1. Lipski is 13-6-0. Montana De La Rosa has been doing this fight camp over at Team Elevation. She's been working on shifting over there to that training camp for a while now. We keep hearing about it pre-fight. And I think this is the first fight where she's finally gotten her full camp at Elevation for this one. She's got really strong wrestling, some solid BJJ. We see that a lot in MMA where someone is a strong wrestler and they learn some BJJ and kind of mix the two together. They end up being just really solid on the ground. Her striking is a bit of a work in progress, but she is very much improving. She's tough, she's durable, she's gritty, and she just doesn't ever quit. Even when she's the punching bag, she never gets out of there. Now, Lipski, she just made a move as well. She's headed over to ATT. Shout out to my guy James Lynch for getting the scoop on that. I'm expecting big improvements from Lipski in the future if that's going to be her spot, because she was one of these homegrown type fighters, and you cap out. At a certain point, you run out of room to grow with the same old coaches, the same old team. Moving to a place like ATT, she's going to have the best trainers, the best coaches, better training partners. Like, it's going to be all up for her from there. So I'm definitely expecting improvements. She's very explosive, physically strong. She's got good offensive BJJ, but she's another one of these fighters that accepts the bottom position. She's willing to play off her back. She's willing to look for submissions, and that's worked for her against lower level people. I don't think she's going to catch Montana De La Rosa in a knee bar or in an arm bar from guard or anything like that. And when it comes to being on the feet, I feel like these two are comparable. Slight edge to Lipski, probably an aggression and power edge to Lipski. But on the ground, I favor the wrestling of Montana De La Rosa. So I'm kind of in agreement here with this line. We've got Montana De La Rosa as the favorite, minus 260 at this point. And Lipski is plus 220. I do feel like it may have gotten a little bit out of control. I got in a little earlier in the week, and I threw Montana De La Rosa in a parlay with somebody else a little bit later on down the card. I don't know if I'd be looking to lay minus 300 necessarily in this spot. This fight could end up being a bit close, but I see it playing out rather evenly on the feet, and once it hits the floor, I don't know that Lipski is going to have an answer for Montana De La Rosa's wrestling. What's your read on this one?
Yeah, completely agree, man. So we agree, we disagree, and we agree. I agree here. I think the line may have gotten a little bit wide. Minus 300 now is getting, minus 300 indicates a 75% win probability, right? And I think maybe that's a bit wide. It's probably about 70%. That's where I cap it. I think I cap Montana De La Rosa at about a minus 233 favorite. And yeah, I just feel like the wrestling is just, it's just levels apart. We've seen Lipski make girls look like Khabib, and the girls that she's made look like Khabib are not Khabib, namely Antonina Shevchenko, right? Antonina Shevchenko was able to dominate her with the wrestling and get a ground and pound TKO. And Antonina Shevchenko is an out-and-out striker, She's Valentina Shevchenko's sister. She's a Muay Thai girl. She's a striker. She's not a wrestler. So for her to make... for Lipski to make Shevchenko look that way, it was a big red flag for me, right? It was kind of the same when Antonina Shevchenko fought Andrea Lee in her last fight, right? Andrea Lee was an underdog, and I bet Andrea Lee there, and I couldn't see why she was the underdog. The reason I couldn't see it is because I thought the striking was pretty similar, but the wrestling path was pretty evident. The reason why the wrestling path was evident was because Antonina Shevchenko had just fought Caitlin Chikagan. And Chikagan is not a wrestler, but Antonina Shevchenko made Chikagan look like Khabib, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big red flag. That's why I backed Andrea Lee. And it's kind of the same here, right? Lipski has been taken down by multiple women. But to make Antonina Shevchenko look such a good grappler in her last fight against her It's a huge red flag. And I just can't back someone with the wrestling credentials or the wrestling skills, whatever you want to say, like Montana De La Rosa against Lipski. Now, look, would I be surprised if Lipski was able to pull out some, women's MMA knee bar like she did against Luana Carolina or something? Not hugely surprised. Lipski, they call her the queen of violence. She could pull something out the bag if Montana isn't able to get the takedowns. But at the end of the day, Montana is going to be able to get the takedowns here, in my opinion. And I think Montana's live for a stoppage. She doesn't have a lot of power, ground and pound TKO, but she does have quite a few submissions on her record. I don't think Lipski's ever been submitted, but I mean, if she's just going to be taken down every round, the sub is always live, right? Anytime you get a fighter who's always going to be on top, then the sub's always live, So I think the sub's live in this fight. And yeah, I don't agree with the line at the moment, but I'm not going to be playing Lipski here. I'm favoring Montana De La Rosa to get it done, possibly inside the distance.
I'm glad we agree on this one, man. And as long as Chris Tione isn't the referee, that finish has got a shot. Even if she doesn't have a whole lot of heat on her punches, if she can just stay active, ground and pounding enough, she could get the stoppage from a different official. So there's definitely that possibility there. I think that Lipski is a very solid prospect. She's athletic. She's strong. She works hard. All the pieces are there. And at a gym like ATT, it's going to come together. I just think she's going to need a little more time. I don't think she's quite ready for this one yet. She's going to have to work that grappling. She's going to have to work that get-up game, the takedown defense, stuffing it. She might come out and look like a beast, man, but I'm willing to go against her one more time, and I'll probably look for improvements the next time around, depending on who they match her up with.
Yeah, I agree, man. We're going to have to see big improvements in the grappling department, right? And it's very hard to bet on something you haven't seen before. It's one of the things that I don't like to do with sports betting, right? One of the things we have to do is make assumptions. That's what betting is. We're assuming what's going to happen in the fight, right? Or in the match. But what you want to do, and one of my angles and one of my philosophies is you want to make as little assumptions as possible, right? So if you want to bet Lipski, you have to assume a hell of a lot. You have to assume that she's just leveled up in her grappling so much. So until I see it, I can't assume that. And that's why I'm picking Montana.
I'm right there with you, man. Every once in a while, I will throw that blind dart on an assumption if I feel very strongly about whether or not someone has made improvements, but it's something you probably should keep to a minimum, for sure. I do just want to address the chat for a sec. We've got 130 people live hanging out with us, breaking down these fights. We appreciate all of you spending your time with us here on this Monday evening. I do just want to mention, there's not a lot you're going to get in trouble for here in our chat. We like to have fun. We like to keep it positive, but something like hate speech is something that you will get banned for. So do me a favor, regardless of your personal opinions, just keep it clean. I've timed out 2 people. You're only on a 5-minute timeout because you're not repeat offenders or anything like that. You can come on back in when it's over, but just remember, please, anything that could be conceived as hate speech, just don't do it. We're going to move on, keep the positive vibes rolling here. Next up, we got another women's fight. Flyweight, Manon Fiorot taking on Maryna Moroz. Oh, and I've got I'm sketching myself out in this spot. Fiorot is 6-1. Moroz is 10-3. And Manon Fiorot has everything I'm looking for, man. I like this prospect, and I've been sucked in by hot prospects a couple times in the past. That's one of my things for 2021. I'm trying to lock down hard and not go too heavy on debuting or new fighters because they look great until they take that step up in competition. But that's exactly what I'm doing here. I haven't even done the breakdown yet. I'm on the Fiorot side because I just love everything that I see from her. She's got a long amateur career, so she's got more experience than her 6-1 record would show. She is a vicious striker on the feet, man. She is mean, and she goes for the finish. She's got a great gas tank. She's got a nice side kick that she uses pretty well. She's got finishing power, which is rare in the women's flyweight division. She flurries when she's got her opponent hurt and up against the cage. She has really strong hips and a good get-up game. So she's one of these strikers that you always want to say that the grappling is going to be the problem, but she is definitely one that can force that issue and make it a striking match rather than being a grappling match. So I don't expect her to have too much trouble there. When she does get on top, actually, she's got a good wrestling game. She hits nice level changes. She's got good timing, and she's super heavy on top. And one of the main things I like about her, like I said, she's mean. She's got this killer instinct. She's going out there to destroy her opponent every single time. Now, Maryna, She's training at ATT. We just talked about how good of a camp that is, good training partners. She is also young and improving, and there's no doubt, I want to get it out of the way right now, she has fought the higher level of competition in the UFC, which is the main reason that I'm kind of terrified that I bet on Manon Fiorot. She has a nice jab. She's a high-volume striker, and she also mixes in lots of leg attacks. She's got a good kickboxing game, and she stays on the outside. She's got good movement. She kind of tries to make you chase her rather than engaging directly. She likes to throw those kicks from the outside, but whenever she gets in close, she's extremely hittable, and I've noticed that she does not react well when she gets hit hard, when she gets hit inside. So this is a spot where I'm expecting improvements from both women. I know Rose has all the experience at the UFC level. Maybe she'll be turning that corner a little bit sooner, but I like everything I see from Manon Fiorot. I bought in. I'm on Manon Fiorot let me see what was my line here. I got it when it was low at minus 155. The line has kind of swung back. She opened up a much larger favorite, minus 195. I bought the dip, and she's minus 165 again now. That's kind of where I like her to be. I don't want to pay 2-1 for her, but at minus 155, I feel like I can justify saying she's the rightful favorite in this spot. I think the power is going to be the difference, man. I think when she gets inside, when she does catch Myra, when she gets in close, she'll be able to hit her hard. She'll be able to hurt her. And that experience may kind of fade away because she just does not like being hit that way. So I'm on Fiorot for better or for worse. I bought in, and that's the side I'm on. Talk to me about this one, man. Where you at?
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of the points you said. So it's funny that you said one of the things
Screwing up my screen here.
I thought we was gone. All right. Yeah, it's funny that you said one of the things that you are trying to stop in 2021 is betting on debuting fighters, right? Betting on prospects. Because as you know, I make content for my YouTube channel. And one of the videos I recently made, right, was don't bet on fighters making their UFC debut, okay? But in the video, I spoke about you have to pick your spots, right? It's not a blanket thing. Like life, there's a lot of gray areas, right? So it's not black and white. You just don't bet on any fighter making the UFC debut. But a lot of the times, you have to be careful because when the fighters come into the UFC, they do not look like how they looked at on the regional scene, right? Because maybe the nerves are there and mainly just the level of competition is much higher. Now, obviously, Fiorot is not making a debut here. This is her second fight in the UFC. She made her debut against Victoria Leonardo. And funnily enough, I bet on Manon Fiorot in her debut. I got her at minus 160, right? And she completely dominated that fight. She looked about minus 400, in my opinion. Leonardo had absolutely nothing for her, right? But here, she's the same price against a much, much better and more proven fighter, right? Which is funny, right? The market values her the same, even though that this is it's a bigger step up in competition. Now, I do think Fiorot should be the favorite here. I think the line is fairly accurate. You know, maybe you make her 60%, maybe not 65, 67%. But she could come out here and look minus 233. She could come out here and look minus 250. You know, she could look at that 70% range because she has all the skills to do it, right? She's a very technical striker. She keeps distance very, very well. She has good side kicks, so she keeps her opponents away. But if her opponents do able to get, you know, through the side kicks, through the head kicks, through the straight, sharp shooting punches, she's very, very strong in the clinch. So Moroz will try and pressure her here. Moroz will put more volume on her because that is what Moroz's game is, right? I'm almost certain Moroz is going to out-volume her unless she's just completely deterred by the power, which definitely is in the favor of Manon here. But I think that even if Moroz, you know, is able to get past that lead leg, able to get past that sharp shooting straight hands, if she gets the clinch, she's probably going to be out-muscled in the clinch. Fiorot is a very, very strong fighter. She's very tall. She looks like a weight class above a lot of the girls she fights, in my opinion. She makes the weight fine. To my knowledge, she hasn't missed weight as of yet. So I guess she's just got that frame where she's able to lose weight, but she's still got a very solid frame for the division. You know, it really just comes down to genetics with them sort of things. So I think if Fiorot, you know, if Moroz is able to get close into Fiorot, which I believe she will need to, she's going to be out-muscled in the clinch. So I can see Fiorot picking her apart at distance and also out-muscling her in the clinch, moving to distance again, and then picking her apart again. I wouldn't be surprised to see a knockout because we do know Fiorot hits very hard, but Moroz does seem tough. I know you said that she doesn't look good when she gets hurt. I disagree with that a little bit. I do think she's a pretty tough girl. I've seen her take some decent punches before. And in this division, there's not too many knockouts, but I wouldn't be surprised. I am favoring Fiorot. The one thing that's keeping me off, I haven't had a bet. The few things that are keeping me off is that obviously the level of competition is just drastically in the favor of Moroz. Yeah. So, we could see something different than we've seen in Manon's previous fights when she does take that step up this weekend. Obviously, the volume is also dramatically in the favor of Moroz. So that's another reason, why I'm staying off. And that's enough to keep me off at the current line. But I'm definitely favoring Manon, and I do think she wins here. And I do think she's got minus 250, minus 300 upside as well. But we'll see, we'll see.
Fair enough, man. And like I said, I had to go for it. I like what I see from her. And I'm glad you mentioned the finish because everybody that watches this show on the regular knows I like my round 3. This is a round 3 sprinkle to me, man. The way that she hits, and with her gas tank, the way that she just grinds and overwhelms people with that striking power, if she's going to land the knockout, I don't think it's coming early. Like you mentioned, I don't feel like Maryna reacts well when she gets hit hard, but she doesn't go down easy. You know what I mean? It's going to take more than just one shot to do it. I'm not seeing round 1. I'm not seeing round 2. I think if Fiorot stays on top of her, stays in her face, closes the distance, hits her hard, even if she gets her on the ground and starts pummeling, I think that's going to happen late. So I would be looking at a round 3 sprinkle on this one. I probably will have that on my card by the end of the week. It's like 14-1 or something right now. We'll see what it looks like by Friday when we can put all those little fun pieces together. But I do have her straight here. I think she's the deserving favorite, and I think she's going to be a problem, man. I think going forward, she's just going to get better. And as she rounds out her grappling game, I definitely think she's going to be a beast.
Yeah, she's a very exciting prospect, That's why I bet on her in her debut, but there's just enough keeping me off here. So good luck. I wish you well. I'd like to see her progress because I do like her skills. So it would be a shame to see her shut down because I do think she can be, an exciting fighter as well as a very good one. So hopefully she gets the win here and hopefully you cash your bet. And the round 3. That 14-1 would be very nice. So yeah,
hey, we hit one not that long ago. Those are fun, man. Those are fun.
Who did you hit?
You know what? I got to look back through my notes and see. I hit Rothwell by submission last event. Yeah. And that one was I think 11-1 or 12-1.
Yeah, it was in that range. Yeah. There's been a few round 3s this year. I hit Islam Makhachev round 3 against Doba. There's Grant Dawson. I hit round 3 in the last second of the fight. That was really good to cash. There's been a few round 3s this year.
Yeah, there have been a couple of really solid spots. I think, I'm going to have to look for it later. I could click back through all these fights to try to find it, but I can't remember which one it was. I play too many of those, I'll be honest. I know that's not necessarily the most direct value or anything like that, but I'm a casual bettor, so I got to throw in those every once in a while for a bit of fun. Speaking of which, our guy Ali in the chat asking for locks. Ali, the L word is not something we use on this channel, my friend. This is sports betting. It's all percentages. It's all value. There is no such thing as a lock, more so in MMA than in any other sport. Because when they're fighting in the cage on Saturday, they literally go home with half of the paycheck if they lose that fight. People will do things that you do not expect. They will overcome their own limitations to take home what they need to for themselves, their honor, for their family, to put food on the table. So you can never underestimate what a human is capable of once those doors are locked. And then you get crazy shit like Chris Wyman's leg breaking when he kicks Uriah Hall. I was on Chris Wyman that night, and you can't plan for the dude's leg snapping like a twig in the first round. So just bear in mind, especially when we're sports betting, it's long term. You want to try to make the best decisions you can for as long as you can. Make sure you utilize proper bankroll management. Never risk more than you're able to lose. That's the key. Next up, we are talking Alan Patrick taking on Mason Jones. Alan Patrick is an old man in the division these days. He is 15-3. Mason Jones, a hot new prospect, 10-1, dropped his UFC debut. And Alan is one of these guys that he reminds me of almost like a Damian Maia-esque fighter where he uses kind of clubbing, big overhand swings to close the distance, get in, and then go for his grappling. Either that or he just bum rushes for a double leg. This guy sells out for the takedown, trying to get you to the mat, and he sticks to you like glue up against the fence. He is more than willing to put a shoulder into you and just grind you up against the cage to try to get a win out of you. He averages 3.48 takedowns over the course of a 15-minute fight, which is a decently high number, and he has a 38% accuracy. Now, that doesn't sound like a great accuracy, but when you're averaging that many takedowns per fight, it's okay to have a lower takedown accuracy because you're just chaining them together. Eventually, you're going to get one of them. However, he's getting a bit old. I mean, we saw him get absolutely bodied by Bobby Green, who is not much of a grappler himself. Bit of a red flag for me. Now, Mason Jones is a guy that I kind of doubted when he stepped into the UFC, and he really impressed me. Like, even in his first fight where he didn't do so well, he still looked good to me against a very, very tough opponent who I'm extremely high on in the Beast Boy. He's an aggressive striker. He's got sharp boxing. He manages range extremely well. He did get taken down 3 times by Mike Davis, but he got back all 3 times back up to his feet. And as soon as he got back up, he tried to make him pay for that takedown. He's got high volume, good output. I like everything I see from Mason Jones. This is what closes out my parlay. I've got 3 units at plus 100, even money, Montana De La Rosa and Mason Jones from about a week ago that I locked in. I think he is getting almost a layup from the UFC with this opponent here. It's a guy who's not going to do much on the feet, not have much opportunity to strike, and as long as he can fight those takedowns, he's going to have a clear edge on the feet, volume and power. And I think what we've seen from the UFC at least a little bit lately, the judges aren't they're not valuing that blanket takedown anymore. You got to do something with it. So if we get one of those sticky rounds where Alon pins this kid up against the cage for 10 minutes and then Jones lands 10 punches to his face, they're going to give that round to Jones. The fact that there's no offensive output from Alan Patrick, that's really what's selling me here on this spot for Mason Jones. So I'm closing out my parlay with this one, man. Tell me, am I going to win it? Am I going to cash that ticket?
I think you are. I think you are.
Right.
Yeah, I actually looked at that parlay as well. Like, as I said, before I do tape, I look at all the lines, I sometimes I add a few legs in a parlay, see how much they will come to. And I did look at that one, Montana and Mason Jones, right? I think minus 300 is getting a little bit up there now, but he's definitely got minus 300 upside. So something about Mason Jones, you said you wasn't, you doubted him a little bit on his UFC debut. And I think most people did, a lot of people backed Mike Davis there at minus 150. I was actually considering a bet on Mason Jones, but I thought the line was pretty accurate. So I ended up passing on the fight. But I think Mason Jones definitely won a lot of fans over in that debut, right? Because he come up against a fighter who's very high level. Mike Davis is a very good fighter. And Mason Jones is just like the zombie man, he walked him down, took a hell of a lot of punishment, didn't go down I don't think he got knocked down once. He got wobbled a couple times. He may have got knocked down. I watch a lot of fights, so I don't have the best memory. But
I don't think he got knocked down.
No, I don't think he got knocked down. He got wobbled a couple times, right? I remember his mouth guard went flying, and he just carried on fighting like he didn't give a fuck. I actually rated Mason Jones before he came into the UFC because he's a Cage Warriors fighter, right? Which is a UK regional scene. And obviously, I'm from the UK, right? I live in New Zealand at the moment, but I'm from the UK. So I have a little bit of a bias towards UK fighters, right? And I try to not let that encourage my betting, right? But it's still kind of hard because I do like my English fighters, right? I support them. So I was quite high on Mason Jones before he came in. And to be honest, he actually, he done better than I thought he would against Mike Davis there, I feel like he made that fight look damn near a pick'em. It was very close. I do agree with the decision, but Mason Jones, he has that Terminator type vibe about him, that Chrome Gracie type vibe where he just walks you down and eventually the pressure should get to you, And I think that's what's going to happen here, right? Obviously, Alan Patrick is a wrestler. He's going to go for the takedowns. He's definitely going to go for the takedowns against Mason Jones because, he's not going to want Mason Jones in his face teeing off, which is what Jones will do. Now, I will say that I have seen Jones taken down a couple of times. We saw him taken down 3 times in his last fight, but I don't think Davis got more than 30 seconds of control after any one takedown in his last fight. He was up straight away, right? I was surprised that they was even classed as takedowns, because sometimes if you don't get no control time, they don't class them on a UFC stats. But anyway, I've seen him taken down in the regional scene as well, and I have seen him controlled for a little bit. But every single time I've seen him take down, he's got back up eventually, you know, whether it's 30 seconds, 1 minute, he has got back up. And when he gets back up, he doesn't rest, man. He puts it on you because he knows that, all right, I've been taken down. I want to make this guy pay, you know, exactly like you said. So even if Patrick does get a couple of takedowns, I think Jones is going to be able to weather the grappling storm. He's going to be able to get up. He's probably going to be able to stuff a lot of takedowns too. But I do expect him to get taken down a couple of times just because his style isn't, you know, a defending takedown style. His style is bum rush you, walk straight into you. So obviously that leaves you open to getting taken down, right? It's not like he sticks on the outside and tries to defend the takedowns, more of a Barbosa style, Thai style. He's more of just a walk forward zombie fighter. So he can get taken down. I think he will, but I think he's going to be able to get back up to his feet pretty early and knock Patrick out. I think he's super live for a knockout here. And one thing that we know, right, as MMA bettors is that if a fighter has a wrestling path and they continuously try to take a fighter down, and the fighter is not resting on bottom, getting back to his feet, defending takedowns, that really wears on the opponent, right? We saw it, and I know you cashed on this one. Well done. We saw it with Priscilla Cachoeira in her last fight against Gina Mazzani, right? Gina Mazzani was offensively grappling, and when Priscilla started defending the takedowns, Gina Mazzani had no energy left, right?
Yep.
That's a combination of obviously physically being tired from offensively grappling, but also mentally being tired from knowing that, fuck, I'm putting my all into taking this guy down and he's not resting, right? That's something I don't see people talk about a lot, is the mental aspect of someone just not giving in, right? And that's what Mason Jones brings. He's not going to give in. So if he's able to defend a couple of takedowns, get back to his feet a couple of times, I believe that mentally is going to wear on Patrick, and the mental does affect the physical. I know you've done a bit of jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you've done stand-up before, but anyone listening to this who have done hard sparring or real fights, if someone is just walking you down, taking your punishment, and you can't hurt them, that mentally is very daunting, and that actually bleeds into your physical, and you get more tired than you would have if, you know, that didn't happen. So I believe that's going to be happening here. I think Patrick is going to learn very early on in the fight, first, second round, that fuck, Mason Jones is just not giving in here. And I do think he's going to crumble under the pressure of Mason Jones. And I think Mason Jones is live for a knockout. Plus 120 for a knockout at the moment. That's a better way of playing it than the money line, in my opinion. Yeah, he could get a decision, but we've seen Patrick knocked out before, and I think we're going to see it again on the weekend.
Dang, man, that was a great breakdown, and I loved every minute of it. You're absolutely correct, and there's a small handful of fighters that I like to back that do that wear their opponents out, and you just can't ever take them down. I'm glad that you mentioned that, and that's the most soul-sucking, exhausting thing I've ever experienced. When you put it on somebody, especially if that's your strength, and you've got nothing for them, it completely drains you. So I'm glad you brought that point up. And you're right, taking Mason Jones inside the distance is probably the better way to play this one here. And I do see him just straight up being the better fighter. In fact, I think this is a step down in competition for him. The reason I didn't really fly with him on the first fight was the fact that he fought Mike Davis. I am super high on Mike Davis. So that laid into how impressed I am with him, because I was looking to fade him in his first fight, and then he got lined up with Mike Davis, and I was like, oh, can't do it. Can't do it against my boy Beast Boy. So the fact that he looked so good and fought that fight so closely, even with a fighter that I respect to that degree, he was an easy shot here for me on this particular fight and this particular matchup. So I like the read, man. I think knockout definitely live. You got to give Alan Patrick a little time to gas that round two, maybe the sweet spot. Love it. All right, so we've got some agreement here on this one. We've got 171 live viewers right now. Once more, thank you all so much for hanging out here with us. This is Pub Sports Radio. We bring the best live sports betting content action to you on the internet today. Do me a favor, if you haven't, hit the like button for me. That's how YouTube and everybody else out there knows that you enjoy the content we're bringing you, and it gets more eyes on the show, and we just get to keep making awesome free content for you. I am joined by my guy, Lucrative MMA, who is an absolute stellar sports bettor. We're happy to have him on the show today. I do want to take a quick second and shout out one of my sponsors, GOAT Capital Sports. That's at GOAT capital_ on Twitter. I do a lot. I do as much as I can. Some degenerate hockey action, which, by the way, you cashed the first period draw on the Leafs and Canadians if you rolled with me on that one. But if it's outside of like NFL, NHL, or MMA, obviously, I can't help you. That's where Goat Capital Sports comes in. They have a very, very reasonable weekly fee. They also have a no-loss guarantee. If they have a bad week and you lose your money, you get a refund on your subscription. So make sure you check out goatcapitalsports.com for all the other sports out there, MLB, baseball, basketball. They even do some crazy shit like soccer every once in a while. So make sure you check them out. Next up, we are talking welterweights, which sounds a bit odd because Francisco Trinaldo is a man who's fought his career at lightweight. He will be competing at 170 for the first time that I know of in his entire career coming up here on the weekend. He's taken on the king of Kung Fu, Muslim Salikhov. Trinaldo is 26-7. Salikhov is 17-2. And the one thing we need to get out of the way immediately is that Trinaldo is over the age of 40, and y'all know the rule. If they're over 40 years old, you've got to have a damn good reason to put your money on them. So make sure we pay close attention before throwing money out there on an aging fighter. Now, he is an absolute tank. At 155, Trinaldo is a problem. He's got a high-level BJJ black belt. You're not going to knock this guy out. You're not going to submit this guy. He's got strong wrestling, and he's more than willing to grind up against the fence. He likes to blitz in to close the range. He's got a big overhand bomb. He can put people away with a single shot. And I tried to fade him with Jai Herbert the last time out. We were looking good. I felt like we were coasting really to a decision win there. And then, bang, he just turned the lights off. So, I mean, you can never, ever get away from Francisco Trinaldo, even as he's aging. Muslim Salikhov is another strong, stocky fighter, except he's a natural 170-pounder. This guy likes to walk his opponents down. He picks his shots well. He's kind of low volume, but when he hits freaking hard. He explodes very suddenly and hits extremely powerfully. He likes to attack the legs. He's got snappy head kicks. He throws spinning heel kicks, all kinds of crazy stuff. And really the big story is that he's reliant on the finish. He's got big power, 80% takedown defense, so he's going to force you to stand with him and then line up that shot. Man, I'll be honest, I didn't understand this line. And I was looking at betting the dog. It was going to be a dog or pass spot here for me. And then the light clicked on that this is the first time Trinaldo's gone up to 170. And that killed it for me. This guy is ever durable, ever strong, insane knockout power, but will that translate up a weight class? I hate when fighters change weight classes late in their careers. If they're figuring it out, if they're in their early 30s, it's not quite working, let's change things up. Okay, I get it, no problem. You're 42, and it's finally taken its toll on your body that you've cut down to 155 for an entire career's worth of fighting, and now you're jumping up to play with the big boys. That just never ends well, man. I know that Trinaldo is tough. I know he's good. He's got all the skills, but I feel like moving up a weight class, we may see that non-breakable chin crack. I think Muslim Salikhov is going to be the guy that might finally find that button, but I hate the number because skill for skill, honestly, Trinaldo probably is the better fighter. So it's a bit of a sketchy spot in my opinion. Probably going to be a spot that I pass on, but I am going to side with the favorite in Salikhov. He's a minus 260 favorite, plus 200 on Trinaldo at this point if you want to roll the dice with the dog. Honestly, I won't say I blame you. Anybody that wants to take a stab with the dog, I absolutely understand and go for it. Lucrative, talk to me, man. How do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, man. As you said, Trinaldo's getting on now. He's getting on. It's going to be hard to back Trinaldo against, high-level competition or even decent UFC-level competition like Salikhov is at this age, especially at this weight class. If you remember against Jai Herbert, he missed weight by 5 pounds, and he looked decent in that fight, right? But Jai Herbert was coming in on his UFC debut, and he was potentially cruising to a win there. He obviously won the second round. He dropped Trinaldo in that second round. In the first round, he lost it because Trinaldo was able to get the takedowns, but Trinaldo seemed to get a little bit tired as the fight went on, although he did get a third-round knockout. And if you remember, that was the brutal knockout where Dan Hardy actually screamed at Herb Dean. Paul Felder was also pissed off because Herb Dean didn't initially stop it. Trinaldo actually stood over Jai Herbert for like a couple of seconds, not punching him, looking at Herb Dean like, are you going to stop the fight or what? Didn't stop the fight. Trinaldo, you know, pounds him out in the fights over there. So he's obviously always live for that that big overhand landing. He's got a decent amount of knockouts in his past, but yeah, man, I don't have too much to say about this fight. I feel like Muslim Salikhov is probably going to be able to match the physicality of Trinaldo just because he is a weight class above. But I do think Trinaldo is a very big and strong 155er, so I don't think the physicality will be too different either side. I think Trinaldo needs to probably get takedowns in this fight. I don't think he'll win a stand-up battle. Salikhov is pretty well versed on the feet. He'll be able to stick on the outside. He throws a lot of spinning back kicks. And as you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see Salikhov actually get a knockout here. He does have quite a few knockouts in the past, and his knockouts are very brutal. You know, they're like spinning kicks, or they're like one-punch knockouts. You know, they're not really like he wears you down. He's more of like a explosive one-shot knockout artist, right? So I could see him cracking the chin of Trinaldo here. Maybe the 170 pound move will actually help Trinaldo's chin. You know, that does happen a lot, but it could go the other way because Salikhov is now a bigger guy than he's been fighting in the past 5-10 years, you know, Trinaldo. So, yeah, I don't have much to say because of the line is where it is. The line may be a little bit wide, but I just see Salikhov being able to stick outside, defend takedowns. We have seen Salikhov taken down before. We've seen him taken down and submitted. I believe it was by Garcia, but that was like 4 years ago. We've seen his takedown defense improve pretty good. I think he's got 80% takedown defense now. We've seen him defend some takedowns from Dos Santos in his last fight. So, you know, he's pretty decent at defending takedowns against a fighter who's usually fighting smaller guys. He should be able to defend the takedowns and pick Trinaldo apart on the feet here. I wouldn't be surprised at a decision. I wouldn't be surprised at a knockout, but I would be fairly surprised to see Trinaldo win the fight.
Okay. Once again, we seem to agree here on a favorite spot. And yeah, man, I think Trinaldo's just so reliant on that strength. You know, you mentioned that Salikhov's grappling has gotten better. I don't know if Trinaldo's going to be the guy that gets him down and keeps him there, because he's just at 155, he's able to overpower some of these people. Some of them, not even all of them. And at 170, I don't think he's going to be physical enough to maintain that advantage. And, you know, we saw what happened. The way Trinaldo fights, it's just not pleasing to the eye. The judges don't nod to him. The Alexander Hernandez fight, extremely close. A lot of people thought that Trinaldo won that fight, but they gave it to Hernandez because it looked better. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel this fight might play out. You might be biting your nails when the judges are reading off the scorecards, but I kind of expect Salikhov to either get the decision or the knockout.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, as you say, it doesn't look pretty his style. Salikhov, it seems like the judges that were officiating his last fight definitely favored his style because, in my opinion, he lost that fight, right, against Dos Santos. And in most of people's opinion, he lost that fight. It was fairly close, but, you know, he got a split decision win there. So 2 judges scored it for him. So maybe the judges like the, you know, low volume spinning attacks. Maybe they like the hard punches, you know, and that could work in his favor here. But, you know, you could look on the other side and say Trinaldo should be on a 4-fight winning streak here, you know, even at his age. Because if he would have won that Hernandez fight, you know, that's 4 fights in a row. I don't know who he fought before that Hernandez fight, but I think it might have been a win. So it could be 5-fight win streak, you know. So even though he's old, he doesn't look like he's weathered that much. But, yeah, I'm thinking Salikhov should definitely get the win here.
Okay. All right, we're on the same page there. And next up, we're talking big boys. Tanner Boser taking on Illir Latifi. Boser is 19-7. Latifi is 5-8. Tanner Boser, this guy moves well at heavyweight, man. He's a little small for the division, but he's light on his feet. He's got sharp boxing, high-volume striker, nasty leg kicks. We've seen him TKO more than one opponent just by chipping away those legs. Now, the biggest thing for Boser is he struggles at the higher end of the division because the heavyweights, these big physical monsters, they just get to be too much for him. He's one of these middlemen where he would work well if there was a 225-pound division. But once you get up to 260, 265, they just kind of outpower him. They overpower him, outmuscle him, and he's getting an opportunity here against a fighter he's not going to have that problem with. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, and Illir Latifi, a former 205er who, to be real, I thought was undersized a little bit at 205, is now moving up to heavyweight. Again, late in his career. I already mentioned I don't like that. And Latifi, honestly, has been one of my favorite guys to fade in his career. I don't like this guy. I don't like what he brings to the table. He's got a big overhand club like most of these wrestlers do, and he just wants to grind on you. He just wants to stick to you, get you to the floor, and he throws absolutely everything into his big power punches. Getting a little late on in his career. I think he's a little bit chinny. He's taken some really big shots, and I think this move to heavyweight is long-term gonna backfire. He suffered 4 losses by KO TKO, and I believe he's had back issues his entire career, or at least for the last couple of years. I've heard him talk about it a couple different times. So I think it's very questionable what he's doing here. He does average 2 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 32% accuracy, so you can't get too upset about that. But again, that's at 205 for the most part. We don't really have any statistics or numbers on him at heavyweight because he fought Derek Lewis. That was his one fight so far, and he struggled to take Derek Lewis down. That was a big red flag to me because Derek Lewis is a big, big man, but he has next to no takedown defense. He's got the fuck you takedown defense. That's where he gets taken down, and then he just bench presses you off him, but he always ends up on his back. Latifi wasn't able to get him down. So to me, it's concerning that Latifi could not put Derek Lewis on the mat. And now he's going to go up against Tanner Boser, a guy who has more fast twitch muscle. He's faster. He's got great hips. He likes to stay to the outside. Those leg kicks, I think, are going to be a problem. I think this is a solid spot for Tanner Boser. I know a lot of people are going to be on the dog. I've seen a lot of love for Latifi out there already, but I kind of see Tanner Boser making Latifi chase him around the cage, busting up the legs, being a heavyweight version of Justin Gaethje, essentially. And when Latifi starts to tire, when Latifi starts to gas out, I think Boser could be live for a late finish, whether it's by the leg kicks or if he gets Latifi coming in with an uppercut or something like that. I think he can hurt this guy. He's got fast hands, good boxing, and I think anything that Latifi throws, Tanner Boser is going to see coming a mile away. So I'm on the Boser side of things here, but I don't necessarily want to pay minus 200 for him. So again, I'm going to say favorite or pass, and I'm not going to put a bet on this fight unless I decide to take Tanner Boser inside the distance or something like that, which this is a pretty sketchy card, man. I don't know how many of those shots I'm going to take on this particular one, but I'm going to side with Boser. What's your feel on this fight?
It's funny because you said favorite or pass, right? And you've only said that one other time, which was in the Zalal fight, right? And I disagreed with you there, and I'm going to disagree with you again here.
Here we go.
Yeah, and I'll explain why. So you've said you've seen a lot of love for Latifi. I haven't seen any love for Latifi, to be honest. I guess, we follow in different people, but I haven't seen many people on Latifi, and I think I'm going out on a bit of a limb here, saying Latifi has a decent shot. Now, I'll explain why. In that Derek Lewis fight, he was able to get him down a couple of times. But Derek Lewis, as you said, he bench presses guys off, right? So he just stands up. And the thing about it is that he was able to do that, right, against Latifi. But Latifi was still able to get some top control on Derek. And if he does that on Tanner Boser's like half the size of Derek Lewis. I know they're both heavyweights, but they're not both the same. They're not both the same weight class. You know what I mean? As you said, Tanner Boser's more of a 225 pounder. They're not the same. They're not the same person, right? If Latifi's able to get Tanner Boser down, then I do think Tanner Boser is going to struggle getting back to his feet. Now, Latifi needs to do some damage because what I saw in that Derek Lewis fight was he was just holding on for dear life. He wasn't trying to do any damage because he knew that if he gives Derek Lewis an inch, Derek's just going to stand up, right? So Latifi, if he does get Boser to the ground, he has to be careful because he needs to do enough damage that the referee doesn't stand him up, right? Because we're seeing that a bit more often these days.
He's another blanket wrestler.
Yeah, the judges are not valuing it and the referees are not valuing it either, right? The UFC wants action at the end of the day. And if there's guy just laying on top doing nothing, I believe they actually tell you, the referees, some of them tell you in the back before the fight, they say that, look, if you're in guard and you're just going body, head, without trying to advance position, then I will stand you up. So Latifi does have to be careful that he doesn't do that. But I do think Latifi can get takedowns here. If he does, I think Tanner Boser is going to struggle a lot because we haven't seen Tanner Boser really test his grappling at all in the UFC. I believe he defended one takedown from Cyril Gane about 3 years ago. But other than that, he's fought strikers. He fought Felipe Lins. Strike knocked him out in the first round. Fought Arlovsky, doesn't know what a takedown is. Andrei Arlovsky, you know. And there's a couple of other fighters he fought, right? I can't really remember who, but Pessoa knocked him out in a round. So he hasn't really been tested in the grappling. You have to go back to his regional scene tape, right? When you're doing film study to see his wrestling. And his wrestling isn't very good, man. I've watched 2 fights now where he's been controlled on the ground fairly easily, right? He does a decent job at defending takedowns, you know, against the cage. But once he's taken down, he doesn't have anything off his back, man. I think it's pretty similar to Woodson, where he's a decent takedown defense artist, but if he does get taken down, it's kind of trouble. Now, those regional scene fights I'm talking about are 3-4 years ago, right? So you're going to have to expect that he's made improvements. He's in the big rigs now. He's in the UFC. He's obviously got, you know, he's not going to not work on his takedown defense and his grappling. So I do expect it to be improved, but is it improved enough to defend the takedowns of a Greco-Roman wrestler, Illir Latifi? I don't know, man. Possibly. Latifi's a small dude, maybe. I just don't think that Latifi should be plus 160. And I've just got a feeling that Latifi squeaks out a decision here. Now, I don't really know if I'm, you know, tempted to take Latifi at plus 160, but I am tempted to take Latifi decision at plus 395, and I may have took that already. If you want to play Latifi sub, he doesn't really get too many subs, but, you know, maybe head and arm choke. He's got a lot of muscle mass there. 12-1 or something. But yeah, man, I feel like Latifi has a decent shot in this fight. I think that it's going to be like a sneaky result on the card where Latifi is just able to basically grapple fuck him to a boring decision. Now, would I be surprised if Tanner's able to stick on the outside and win a volume-based decision? Not at all, but I'm actually going to take the shot on Latifi via decision, and I think it could be a sneaky underdog play. And I will say that there's a lot of underdogs on this card I like going from now to the last fight. I think almost every underdog is live on this card, and I think Latifi's one of them.
All right. And yeah, man, this is one of those cards where, honestly, like you said, from this point onward, you can make an argument for every fighter on the card. Like, this is going to be a fun card. There's some really good matchmaking. I'm looking forward to getting into some of these fights here with you. I see it. I get it. And this is why, like I said, for me, it's a pass. It's favorite or pass. I'm going to say Boser, but this could be another greasy split decision. This could be another one where it comes down to the judges and who values the 3 minutes of control time versus the 5 leg kicks. Like that, it could be that kind of a spot. Now, I did hear an interview, again, shout out my guy James Lynch. He talked to Tanner Boser, and Boser mentioned his lack of urgency. He said that's something I've got to change. He's like, he's really torn up about the loss to Arlovsky because of that lack of urgency. So that's a spot that I kind of am like, okay, now a lot of people tell me not to buy into what the fighters say or think, but I do think that there's something to be said for the mental state of a fighter, and we need to pay attention to at least where they're at, whether or not they're learning, whether or not they're making changes. And if Boser is saying, I need to be more urgent coming into this thing, that's a quote I like to hear. Again, I'm not betting on him, but he's going to be my pick. When I do my skull and crossbones picks at the end of the weeks, I'm going to put the skull on Illir Latifi's face. I'm expecting Boser to get the nod here on this one. But I see everything you're talking about. This one could be really close.
It's hard, right? It's hard to know how much to factor in what people say outside of the octagon, right? I almost factor it in 0%, right? But it still is 0.5 to 1%. You know, I still factor it in very slightly, but it's just, I've seen so many times over the years that a fighter says one thing and it's completely the opposite when they get in the cage. So it's very hard. The list really does go on, you know. It's almost every week, right? If you really listen to the interviews, it's every week a fighter says something, and then it's like, it's literally the opposite, right? They say, I'm going to do this. Like, I mean, Beneil Dariush is one that comes to mind, right? I had 7.5 units on Beneil Dariush against Tony Ferguson. And when I heard him say, look, Tony's crazy, but I'm crazier. If Tony spins, I'm going to spin twice. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God, don't spin. Go for the takedowns, please, right? And then when he gets in there, it's a 15-minute wet blanket grappling clinic, right? So it's very hard to factor in what they say. But at the end of the day, if you're on Tanner Boser, you do want to hear that. You don't want to not hear that, right? So it is a good thing, but it's hard to factor it in for me, you know, when we're betting.
All right. Fair enough, man. I get that. I totally get that. And he'll have to prove it for sure. So we're about to break down the last fight on the preliminary card. Makwan Amirkhani taking on Kamuela Kirk. I'm going to run a little ad for one of our sponsors here real quick for everybody. And I'm going to throw everybody a bit of a curveball. Lucrative, if you don't mind, man, I'm going to let you lead off this next fight breakdown because I think my dog is about to shit all over my floor, and I don't want to clean that up after the podcast. So I'm going to dip off for 2 seconds to let him out real quick, and then I'll be right back to talk about this fight with you.
You
First time. We're making history on the podcast today.
Sure, man. Okay, so while Clint goes and wraps that shit up, I'm going to start this shit off, right? We got Makwan Amirkhani against Kamuela Kirk, right? So this dude is making his UFC debut, and I'm talking about Kirk. We did see him in the UFC banner once against Billy Quarantillo. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series, I believe. He did well in that first round against Billy Quarantillo, who's a decent fighter. You know, it's a good litmus test. Whenever I'm watching tape, I like to see fighters fight decent fighters, right? So you can tell how good they're going to do when they get to the UFC. And Billy Quarantillo actually won that fight, and that's why he's in the UFC. He got a contract because of that. But I will say Kirk did pretty well there. Kirk went out, he got the takedowns in the first round, and he ended up winning the first round. But Billy's attrition, you know, just he was able to defend the takedowns of Kirk in that second round, and then he was able to knock out Kirk in the third round. So that's what Kirk likes to do, right? He likes to get the fight to the ground. I have seen fights he fought a Brazilian called Silva where he wasn't able to get the takedown, and he just got picked apart for 15 minutes on the feet there. He wasn't able to get the takedowns against Billy Q in the second round, and you know he got finished in the third round there. So if he's not able to get the takedowns, he is a little bit takedown reliant. He's a little bit wary on the feet. Clint's back now, so I'll just continue. Did you sort that out with your dog?
You know what? We did. We're good. Barely made it though. He was doing a good job of like whining at me to let him out, which is how I knew it was serious. He never does that.
Perfect timing. So yeah, just to finish off on Kirk, he is takedown reliant, but you know, so is his opponent, Makwan Amirkhani here. So it's not like he's fighting a very good striker that if he does not get the takedowns, he's going to be completely outgunned on the feet. I think it's fairly close on the feet. I probably favor Makwan Amirkhani just because of we've seen him fight on the feet against fighters who are really good, and he didn't do completely terrible. I'll put it that way. You know, Makwan Amirkhani now, in his last fight, he fought Edson Barbosa. He couldn't really get the takedowns on Edson. I think he got 1 or 2, but he couldn't keep top control. Edson's a very hard guy to take down. No matter what you think, if you've seen the Lee and Khabib fights, he is still very hard to take down. And, you know, he got dropped a couple times in that fight, did Amirkhani, but you know, he was still mixing up a little bit on the feet against Edson Barbosa, and he made it to the decision, right? He made it 3 rounds. I feel like if Edson Barbosa fought Kamuela Kirk, he'd probably knock out Kamuela Kirk, right? So I think Amirkhani may have the edge on the feet, but it's just hard for me to tell because of the, you know, the tape we've seen on them. It's kind of hard for me to get a read on it. Amirkhani's a big favorite here. He's minus 275, right? Minus 300 on some books. I kind of agree with Amirkhani being a big favorite. I don't know if I'm going to put him at minus 300, maybe like minus 200, minus 250. But to me, it just seems like Amirkhani's got way more experience. And at the end of the day, if you go on Amirkhani's record, he only loses to the best fighters, right? He's got a couple losses on his record early in his career. But other than that, he's losing to Shane Burgos. He's losing to Edson Barbosa. He's losing to good UFC level competition, right? Kamuela Kirk, on the other hand, is losing to fighters who are not at that level. I think Amirkhani's probably going to be able to get the takedowns here. I couldn't find much tape on Kirk from bottom, but I think Amirkhani's going to be able to get the takedown, and I think he's probably going to snatch up another anaconda choke or something. When Amirkhani takes that step down, he kind of dominates the fight, right? He had a split decision loss against Arnold Allen, who I'm very high on. I think Amirkhani's the rightful favorite. He's the rightful big favorite, and he's a pretty safe pick here, in my opinion. One of the safest on the card. One of the fights I'm most confident about on the card.
Okay, all right. So this is a spot that I'm a little torn, man. Makwan Amirkhani is a guy that I've been secretly high on for some time, and I say secretly because I can't stand the guy. He's one of these guys that I don't like him as a person, but I like to bet on him because I like his fighting style, and I think he's got a lot of room to grow. I think he's got a relatively high ceiling, and he will get there. You know, what he's been talking about in his last couple fights is working on his striking, his boxing. He's taking strength and conditioning seriously for the first time in his career. He said that leading up to the Barboza fight is that he finally cut out the negative influences. He finally stopped partying between fights, and now he's taking it seriously like a professional, and that's kind of what we're seeing. I'm expecting more from him going forward because of that. Again, I'm believing what a fighter has to say. We've seen that go, both ways before. But as much as I think this guy may have the most punchable face in the UFC, I kind of think he really means what he says when he's taking his career seriously at this point. Like you said, he takes that step up, he might have a bit of a problem. But anybody who's mid-tier or lower, he walks through like it's nothing. He is one of these guys. He belongs in the UFC. He's earned his roster spot. He averages about 3.37 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 37% accuracy. That's a solid accuracy. A lot of takedowns. His wrestling is good. He's physically strong, and his submissions are nasty. I know you called that anaconda choke. I don't hate that look. The only problem is, like I said, I'm torn. This Kirk kid comes out of Fight Ready, which is my absolute favorite camp for sports betting. He's in a good place working with guys like Henry Cejudo. Eric Anders is over there these days. Not that that's a, massive influence here on this particular fight, but the coaches do wonders. They turn these people into absolute monsters for fight day. And we see lots of improvements from them. I mean, look at Bruno Silva. He's been tearing things up lately. I know it's been against relatively low level of competition, but again, he's another one of those middle of the road type of guys. If you're not at the top end of the division, he will probably crush you. So I'm expecting Kirk might surprise some people. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He fights with the same karate stance we see guys like Henry Cejudo and Bruno Silva utilize. He's a pretty methodical striker. He's a little bit low volume, but he does throw a lot of low kicks. He's got a strong 1-2 that I liked, and he likes to mix in that teep front kick to the head and the body, keeping the striking at range until he decides to change levels. I've seen he's got pretty solid submission defense. So honestly, I kind of feel this one goes to the decision. I think Makwan Amirkhani is going to be the better wrestler of the two. I think Kirk will try to rely on that jiu-jitsu, but I don't see him catching any type of a submission from the bottom. And if Makwan Amirkhani is outgunned on the feet, he has been working on that boxing. He might be the better striker, but then he just level changes. I can absolutely see him just dragging this fight to the floor. And even though this guy's a BJJ black belt, I don't see him tapping Makwan. So I think Amirkhani is the right side. I'm kind of leaning more towards Amirkhani by decision myself, but I don't hate the look on the submission against a no-name fighter we haven't seen in the UFC yet.
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. I think Kirk's a good fighter. I think he's a decent fighter. I don't think he's a complete bum, but the reason I'm more confident on him than some of the others is mainly just because the lack of UFC experience, the level of competition Amirkhani's been fighting at. So I think even though he might not make it look a complete blowout the water, I think it's a pretty safe pick. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think he might surprise a couple of people, but then he could also get anacondaed in the first minute. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, that's one mistake. That's all it takes. Makwan can absolutely snap something like that up without a problem. So this one's going to be a fun fight, man. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see what Kirk brings to the table. Honestly, he's a guy I probably will look to bet on in the future. Just kind of hate that he comes up against Makwan in this spot. I feel like he could be an under-the-radar underdog that we could maybe snatch for his debut, but this ain't the guy. I don't want to go against Makwan in this spot.
Yeah, I agree, man.
All right, well, that does it for the preliminary card. We are headed over to the main card for UFC Vegas 28. My name is Clint. You are watching the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm joined by my guy, Lucrative MMA. We've got 210 live viewers here on this holiday weekend. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We're doing our best jobs to break down these fights for you and try and help you put some extra money in your pocket come Saturday. And we are kicking off with the middleweights. Tom Breese taking on Antonio Arroyo. Breese is 12-3. Arroyo is 9-4. And this is another one of these fights that's it got me a little sketched out, man. I'll be honest. Tom Breese, he's a fighter I feel like is a good hammer and a bad nail. We've seen him cover up in there. We've seen him shell up and quit when things aren't going his way. If he can't be in the driver's seat controlling the fight, he tends to wilt. But when he's in the driver's seat, he's a world beater. He's an absolute monster if he's the guy in control. He's got a nasty submission game. He's willing to play off his back. I've said that more than once on this card. There are several people that are like that, and it's always a red flag for me because of the way that MMA is scored. So he likes to attack with submissions when defending takedowns. He's got decent striking, good boxing on the feet, but he's taken on Arroyo, who's an absolute monster at middleweight. This guy is huge for the division, and he's got a strong kicking attack. He likes to play on the outside, mix up the body and leg kicks. And then the issue with Arroyo is he really can't stop a takedown. This guy has solid BJJ himself, but little to no wrestling ability. We saw that in his last loss where he just got rinsed and repeated by Deron Wynn, who's kind of the smallest guy in the division. These guys look like they didn't belong in the cage together, and he still managed to lose that fight. He does slow down late in the fights with all that size, all that muscle. He tends to gas out and get tired. He's only got a 32% takedown defense rating, so huge hole in his game, but also not a path to victory that we see Tom Breese take very often. I feel like we might end up with a kickboxing fight here, man. And if we end up with a kickboxing fight, Breese is playing straight into the hands of Arroyo. And I feel like that really gives him the opportunity to be a live dog in this spot. I can't really trust Arroyo with my money, but I'm not going to be shocked if he pulls off the upset and gets a head kick knockout or something along those lines, man. Especially if Tom Breese tries to like fall to his back or something and Arroyo ends up on top of him. His ground and pound is solid. He's got a decent top game. He just doesn't do well from bottom. So plus 205, the underdog, Antonio Arroyo, minus 245 for Tom Breese. This is a dog or pass spot for me, but I'm not sure I'm going to end up betting this one by fight time. How you doing on this one?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, man. I feel like Breese is the rightful favorite, but I think the line's too wide, man. As we said, the underdog, you can make a case for almost every underdog on this card. And, you know, to be honest, man, if they keep betting Tom Breese, because they are betting Tom Breese, because I saw Arroyo at like plus 170 at one point, and now the dude's plus 200, plus 210 on Sportbet. So if they keep putting money on Tom Breese, yeah, and they're going to give me Arroyo at like minus 215, minus 220, I might have to play Antonio Arroyo. I don't want to really do it. I kind of want to pass on the fight, but you know, at the end of the day, in sports betting, we have to be betting where value is on the line, right? We're not trying to pick winners. You know, we're trying to pick where there's value on the line. So if they keep betting on Breese, I'm going to probably have to play Arroyo. I do think Breese is going to win. I think Breese is going to win via decision. I think he can probably get takedowns if he needs to. I'm assuming that Breese, if the going does get a little bit tough on the feet, if he starts taking them big body kicks that Arroyo likes to whip in, Breese could probably go for the takedown. I mean, he could probably get it pretty easily as well. And if he notices he can get the takedown easily early, like if he feels Arroyo's takedown defense to power, it'll be a smart move for him to take down, to take down Arroyo consistently. I don't know if I can bank on Breese doing that because he does like to strike. You know, he likes to pump out that jab. He really enjoys boxing. It's hard to get a read on Breese for me. It's been hard for many years because he obviously took that break, right, of like 3 or 4 years or whatever it was. And he pulled out a lot of fights because of his mental condition. He was worried about, competing in the octagon. And then some of his fights have gone really quickly. Brendan Allen was the first round. KB Bhullar was like 22nd knockout or whatever. So it's still hard for me to get a complete read on Tom Breese's skill set. So yeah, man, I'm going to go with Tom Breese to win via decision, but I don't hate the play on Arroyo. It's just the grappling and mainly the cardio that is just really horrible with Arroyo. I don't really want to play him because of that. But if the bettors are going to keep betting and make me play him, I'm just going to have to do it. You know, I don't want to, but you might force me into it.
I feel you, man. I feel you. Because, yeah, I don't like backing fighters with bad cardio. That's a big, big issue for me. I say that, and I'm going to, put my foot in my mouth a little bit later. But in this particular spot, if you can't trust Arroyo in round 3, if he does good work and gets it 1-1 going into the third, you can't have your boy slowing down and giving up a sloppy takedown and being on his back for the final round of the fight. That's a bad spot to be in as a sports bettor. So, yeah, man, I'm very, very not sold on Tom Breese. Kind of like you mentioned, he's been in and out so much this whole time. We really have no idea what he's really capable of at this point. And I'm torn, man. Like I want to take that shot. I really want to take that shot. The degenerate in me is wanting to bet Arroyo just to be on the other side of the public on this one.
I'm with you, man.
But we'll see what happens. We'll see where the line goes. Maybe we get there by fight time because I can see the clear path to victory for Arroyo. And I know we talked about not throwing darts in the dark, man, but after you get rinsed by Deron Wynn, you got to think he's working the takedown defense, right?
Yeah, I just don't know how much he can improve in that short amount of time, right? Because he's been working his takedown defense probably almost his whole life, at least his MMA life. So, but then on the other hand, Deron Wynn's a good wrestler. People hate on Deron Wynn, but he's a good wrestler. Tom Breese is not a Deron Wynn. So, even if he's improved it a little bit, it might be enough.
That might be enough.
It might be enough to stop Tom Breese, man. I don't know. I feel like this fight's going to play out closer, and anytime you think it's going to be closer, you kind of want to bet a plus 200 number. So I'm with you, man. Maybe we'll speak over the next couple of days. Hopefully this doesn't go too big so people don't, bet the other side, even though it might do. But we'll see, man. We might be on Arroyo by the end of the week.
Hey, I always try to tell people, anytime there's a spot like this, I just let everybody know we've got 206 live viewers. If you're from the future and you're watching this on Wednesday, if you like Arroyo, everybody just sit tight. Just wait, because right now the money is all coming in on Breese. Let's see how high that line can go. I also do just want to break in with an announcement. We cashed our Josh Bailey anytime goal scorer prop. If you guys have been watching the Islanders and the Bruins game, plus 325 on the goal scorer prop for my guy. So happy to report that. Looking good in the degenerate action today. Sorry about that,
going into the weekend. No, we got the good juju going into the weekend. That means, man, that's good.
Hell yeah. Sometimes you gotta get it in the other sports, man. The betting only on Saturdays. I mean, I know we've got PFL, Bellator. Sometimes you can get Thursdays, Fridays in there, but I'll be honest, I get my ass handed to me in Bellator. So it's better that I bet hockey and not try to mix in the other departments of MMA.
Fair enough. Man, I literally don't have no time to watch any other sports, the amount of tape I do. But if you can make time for it, I respect to you because I know how much time it takes,
Man, people don't get how much time we spend. But hey, that's why we do this show. We compact it all into a 1 or 2 hour session there for you. You get all the information after we've checked it all out for you. So the least you could do is give us a like. You could give us a share. You could give us a follow. Y'all know what to do. It's the internet. It's 2021. Moving on, we got a middleweight fight, man. We've got Dusko Todorovic taking on Gregory Rodrigues. Todorovic is 10-1 coming off taking that first L of his career. Rodrigues is 7-3. And honestly, man, I was against Todorovic in his last fight out against Puna, and that felt really good. Todorovic is one of these guys that I earmarked as a fade. I said the second I get somebody who can take the offense and return fire, I'm fading him because he is an offensive monster. He's well-rounded everywhere. He's got great striking. He's got power. He's got good wrestling. He's got a slick submission game. This guy is nasty. He really has all the pieces. But I have seen him hurt. I have seen him wobbled. In 10 fights, he's already got questions surrounding his durability, in my opinion. And we saw that come through on the Punalele-Soriano fight where he just couldn't keep going once he found somebody who could hit back as hard as he does. So I have been looking to fade him. I'm glad we got the shot too. And now I just have to decide whether or not I want to go back to the well. This is another one where I'm not entirely sure which way I want to go on, but I'll tell you this much. I'm almost never betting Dusko Todorovic. Gregory Rodrigues, he's kind of questionable at 7-3. And this is where I'm not sure what I want to do because Rodrigues is kind of a step down from Punalele-Soriano. This could be the exact type of opponent that Dusko rolls through. He was on Dana White's Contender Series. Some of you may recall he got knocked out on the Contender Series. Now, he did get back-to-back wins by knockout over in LFA, earning him his slot back here on the UFC roster. He's a BJJ black belt. He's another guy that's got decent striking and big power. He's dangerous both on the ground and on the feet, but I do again question this guy's durability. I've got questions about what he can take when he's in the UFC. And the two guys I want to mention that he did win by knockout against an LFA, man, it looked like they were in the wrong weight class. Like he knocked out dudes that looked like they were a full head shorter than he was. And I'm not sold that he's back. I'm not sold that he's this monster because he took out some less than caliber competition. Right now, you can get Todorovic as a minus 155 favorite. The comeback is plus 135 on the underdog Rodrigues. He opened up about plus 160. We've seen a lot of love in the betting market for Rodrigues, and I think that's some recency bias. He's got a lot of finishes on his record. We just saw Dusko get knocked out, and I think that's kind of what people are going with here in this spot. I get it, and I think if you got in early at that plus 160 line, that's kind of where you want to be. But at plus 135 lower at a pick'em, I think I got to kind of flip back to the Dusko Todorovic side. I think he's going to be better than Rodrigues. I think he's well-rounded enough. I don't think he'll be able to I don't know that Rodrigues will be able to get a submission on him. So if Todorovic wants to go to the wrestling, I've also seen him just grind people up against the fence and kind of bust them up in the clinch, that kind of a thing, not going to the ground, not letting the jiu-jitsu guy have his win condition. I think this is Todorovic's fight to lose. However, he is completely untrustworthy, and I'm not putting my money on him. How do you feel about this one?
I like the underdog in this one. It's another spot where I like the underdog. Yeah. So there's been quite a few. I've said about 4 or 5 already. There might be a couple more. And yeah, this is a spot I like the underdog in, man. So look, the one thing we have to say about the underdog, which is Gregory Rodrigues in this fight, is that his durability is very questionable, right? He definitely can get hurt. He got knocked out against Jordan Williams, like you mentioned, in that Dana White Contender Series fight. And it looked like just one clean shot and he was knocked out there. So I don't think he has the greatest chin, but it's kind of the same on Dusko Todorovic's side, in my opinion. Like Dusko has, very good offense, but his chin is a little bit questionable as well. Now, look, he's only been knocked out once, and he got knocked out by Punahele Serrano, right? So that guy hits hard as fuck. So it's kind of crazy to say, he got knocked out once in his career by a guy who hits as hard as Punahele, and now he's got a bad chin. Look, I've seen him a little bit. I haven't seen him badly hurt, but I've seen him not react amazingly well to shots before. And another reason why I think his durability might not be the best is just because of how low he has his hands down, right? Like he has his hands low. A lot of times he takes punches. He doesn't take them on the gloves. He takes them clean. Now, he doesn't often take them clean because he does have good head movement. But at the end of the day, when you start stepping up these levels, that hands down style, unless you're Wonder Boy or someone like that, you're going to get cracked on the chin. And it's not good to get completely cracked on the chin with your hands completely down like that, right? We saw him get knocked out in his last fight. And I think it's going to happen here again, man. I like Gregory Rodrigues' striking. It's very, very high level. His boxing is pinpoint, man. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch, He's got beautiful straight hands. He's got good hooks. He's got beautiful uppercuts as well. And he's very clever at timing a specific strike. So if he sees Dusko lean into one side, which he does, I believe he's going to be able to time that very well. He's not like a spray and pray type fighter, right? He's more of an aim and fire type fighter, like Israel Adesanya, right? Now, I'm not comparing them, but this aspect...
Before the chat goes off.
Yeah, that's what always happens, right? So, no, he's not Israel Adesanya, but he will aim and fire, right? So he's a pretty cerebral fighter in the fact that he will kind of notice what his opponent's doing and react to that in the striking. And I think that could help him in this fight because Dusko is a little bit susceptible to doing the same thing over and over again, pulling back the same way, exiting on the same way. And if he does that, I think Gregory can capitalize on it. Now, Dusko is very live to knock out Gregory, and I think a decent way of playing this might be the violence bet, right?
Absolutely.
I see that under 1.5 is minus 110. I don't hate under 1.5, but I really don't like betting under 1.5s unless I'm like really, really confident. I don't think I hardly ever play under 1.5s. I played it in the Tai Tuivasa versus Harry Hunsucker fight, and I played it in the Chris Daukaus versus Alexei Olenek fight, right? Both of them fights are heavyweights, right? So, big guys, they often get knockouts early. I'm going to go with Rodrigues to get the knockout. I'm actually pretty confident Rodrigues shouldn't be plus 1 whatever he is, plus 140 here. I think that this should be a pick'em, but obviously Dusko's got that UFC experience, so you have to favor him a little bit maybe. But look, I just think the line's wide here, and I just see the striking of Rodrigues getting to Dusko, and I think Dusko's going to get his second knockout loss in a row in the first round. I think is probably going to happen as well.
Okay, all right, I like it, man. I always love a good dog shot. That's
Yeah,
it's never something. I'm never going to talk anybody off an underdog. You know what I mean? This is a fist fight, like we talked about at the beginning. People are going home with half their money if they lose. I love that plus money, and I totally get what you're saying. I might need to go watch a little bit more tape on Rodrigues. I guess I wasn't quite as intrigued by his striking as you were, but you may have convinced me. I do agree, though, that the best way that you could play this thing is the violence. I absolutely think that the under is a sweet spot to look, and fight doesn't go the distance at minus 285 as a parlay piece. Like, I don't see how this fight makes it to the judges' scorecard. So, if you want to roll with my man Lucrative, parlay up Makwan and Amirkhani, and then fight doesn't go to decision on Todorovic and Rodrigues, that should probably net you about even money. But I do think the violence is probably the way to go. And Rodrigues by knockout is plus 255, my man. So if that's the way you're looking, that is not a half bad number to get if that's the path to victory, because I do think it's more knockout than submission. Todorovic's got decent submission defense, and the chin is really where I question him. So I'm there with you on that path to victory, and that's a damn fine number. So I wouldn't mind that look whatsoever.
This fight's going to be great, man. This is going to be a little exclusive. This is going to be my most exciting fight. When I put out my podcast, I do 3 segments. One of them is the most exciting fight, and this is going to be the most exciting fight on the card. So I'm expecting fireworks from the off, man. And this is probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most on the whole card. One of them.
This is probably fight of the night, man. I mean, as long as it lasts, it's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And for those of you rocking with on the degenerate action, it is 2-1 Islanders. They took the lead over the Boston Bruins, so we're live on that bet. Plus 170. Let's go. All right. I'm getting excited. Moving right along, we have got a welterweight fight. Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Miguel Baeza, and this might be the most intriguing fight for me to break down stylistically on the card. Santiago Ponzinibbio is a bit of a mystery right now, man. He was touted as a title contender, a guy with raw knockout power that could kill anybody, and then he disappeared. He's gone for years. He comes back as a giant favorite, and I'm so pissed off at myself. I called the Leech knockout, and I did not bet it. I said that this is not a spot where you want to trust an aging favorite coming back after a long layoff, and I didn't sack up and put my money on it. And sure enough, he came through and got the knockout. This is a quick turnaround for Santiago Ponzinibbio, but he's got a style that never gets old, man. Vicious knockout power, heavy leg kicks. Doesn't move his head, though. That's something I've noticed, is that his head stays right where it's hittable. And I think he's 35 now, 34, 35. So he's getting up there. He's had a long fighting career, lots of injuries. The one thing I noted is that he's got a 60% takedown defense rating. And that takedown defense hasn't been tested since 2016. Miguel Baeza, 10-0 undefeated, a really hot prospect right now. Keeps a nice high guard, strong kicks. He's got a good kicking game, big power striker, but he kind of throws one at a time. He really goes slow, 1-2, swings for the fences. He's looking for the kill. He's looking for the knockout every single time Miguel Baeza throws a punch. But what he's got is really underrated grappling. Now, I know a lot of people that cashed in on his submission prop his last time out because nobody remembered that he's a high-level jiu-jitsu player after the way he's been striking with people. So I know a lot of people cashed in really well on the last fight. So the cat's a little bit out of the bag. But I've got questions about the durability of Baeza. He got messed up by Brown, man. There were a couple of times, a couple of elbows got through, and he wobbled. He wobbled bad. There's a lot of love right now coming in on the underdog, Santiago Ponzinibbio. I know this is a step up in competition for Miguel Baeza, but it's another spot where it's a young kid who's making improvements, who I expect to be someone that we talk about for a couple years to come. Ponzinibbio was about a plus 130 favorite or so. He's down to even money in some places. Plus 100, you can get a plus 105 out there. Minus 125 on Miguel Baeza after opening up a minus 160. And honestly, man, I kind of feel like the grappling is the path here. I feel like if Miguel Baeza gets in any trouble on the feet, switch it up, head for the takedown, try and force the grappling with an elderly fighter who really just hasn't done any grappling in the last 5 years or so. Obviously, I'm not in the training room. Maybe he's a badass wrestler and has just been a monster in that area ever since his takedown that he gave up back in 2016. But everyone has been more than happy to strike with this guy for the last 5 years. I question Baeza's chin. I don't like the fact that he's low volume. These guys could just go 1-for-1 in the middle of the cage until somebody drops. But I think that potential grappling advantage, maybe just that little piece of the puzzle that switches me over to the Miguel Baeza side. This is a pick'em fight where the winner's going to look like a minus 300, and it's a real coin flip, man. How do you feel about this one? Where are you looking?
I agree with you, man, and I think we're on the non-consensus side, right? Well, I don't know what word you call that. I'm forgetting now, but most people are on Ponzinibbio here, it seems like, right? People, because they want to play him as the underdog. And I understand, right? Miguel Baeza has never fought anyone like Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? But has he ever fought like anyone like Santiago Ponzinibbio in 2021? You know, it may be a different Santiago, man. We're talking about Santiago 3 years ago when he fought Neil Magny, right? Like, he looked good then, but I just feel like he may have fallen off a cliff. Now, I don't want to take too much away from his last fight because it was a 1-round fight, but it wasn't a 1-minute fight, right? It was about a 4-minute fight. So we got to see Santiago do absolutely nothing for 4 minutes against the Leech, right? And then he got knocked unconscious. So that was a big red flag for me, right? I don't usually take too much away from 1-round fights, but if it goes for 4 minutes, right, then I do take a little bit more than if it was 30 seconds. It wasn't a flash knockout. It was, they fought for 4 minutes and then he got knocked out. I feel like Santiago might kind of be done. I don't want to say done in regards to just the UFC, but maybe at the high level. Now, is Baeza that high level? Who knows? I think he is. I think he's got a good skill set. He has all the tools to improve drastically. I mean, his striking is very, very high level. You can tell he sets things up pretty well. He mainly throws the straight hand and the not the lead leg kick, the back leg kick. He mainly throws that from southpaw, I believe, the head kick, which is very, very fast. You know, he doesn't telegraph that at all. He will throw a push kick every now and then. He's got good diverse striking, but he does mainly throw them 2 strikes. And as you said, you know, he's got a decent ground game. Now, I do think he probably will give Santiago the stand-up fight he's looking for, but I think he can win that stand-up fight, man. I'm favoring Miguel Baeza to go out here and finish Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? Look, if you're taking a shot on Santiago, especially as the underdog, I know the line's about to flip now. If the line flips, don't be surprised if I get in on Miguel Baeza, right? I'm not really comfortable laying minus 140 on him, but, you know, I can see it's changing now. Minus 110 pick him in a lot of spots. If he becomes the plus money underdog, I'm pretty sure I'm going to take that spot because I do feel like Santiago may have dropped off a cliff in the last 3 years. So, yeah, man, not too much to say. I'm favoring Baeza. I think he can outstrike Santiago. And unless Santiago winds back the clock, I think he's going to lose here. The trajectory of their careers is dramatically different. Santiago's going this way. Baeza's going this way. You know, maybe Baeza's past him now. I don't know. We'll find out on the weekend. But if it's underdog money, I'm willing to take the shot on Baeza.
I love it, man. I love it. Once again, we got 218 live viewers. Don't run off and bet Baeza. Everybody chill. This line looks like it's about to flip, and that's what we're looking for because I don't want to bet Miguel Baeza at minus 160. It's a step up in competition. He's got some durability questions. That's not what I'm looking for. Minus 125? Maybe. We're getting closer. Pick them. Okay, you can talk me into that. Plus 105, I'm there all day. All day. I'm betting plus 105 all day. So let's see if we can get this line to flip. If you like the Ponzinibbio side, by all means, please go bet it now. And if you're with us on Baeza, just chill, sit back, relax. And man, this kid's a finisher. I don't see him winning a decision here. He's going to find a way to crack Ponzinibbio's armor one way or the other. I don't hate the knockout look, but honestly, man, that sub is 10-1 again. And the club and sub is always available that seems a little bit wide because of what we just saw the last time out. If he doesn't quite land clean, I could see him diving on top of Ponzinibbio and Ponzinibbio giving up his back in a scramble or something like that. The sub, I think, is absolutely live in this spot, but inside the distance is definitely the safe way to play it. I do see him getting the finish one way or the other. It's hard to envision this fight going to decision.
Yeah, and I do want to say that if you're on that side, I forgot to mention, fight doesn't go to decision under 2.5. It's a good price. It's a playable price. It's a better price than I thought it would be, which means I think the line's inaccurate. And if the line is inaccurate, it means you kind of should be playing it. So that's definitely another way. If you're not super sold on Baeza at the moment, I think the under is a decent bet because Baeza definitely has a bit of a questionable chin. We've seen it in the Matt Brown fight. So yeah, man. And we know Pons hits hard at the end of the day. Even if he's fallen off a cliff, he probably still has his power. So the under could be a good shout as well if you're not sold on either side.
I like it, man. I literally pulled that up while we were talking about it. I clicked to take a look at the line, and under 2.5 right now. Now, the totals are tricky. Not everybody makes their totals available early in the week, so most of us probably aren't going to get this line. You'll have to wait till things open up a little bit later on, but right now it's minus 138. So if you can get minus 138 on an under 2.5 with these two guys, I don't mind that spot whatsoever. I think violence is a good way to go in this particular fight.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree.
All right, we are getting it done, man. We're getting towards the end of this thing. Middleweight fight up next. My Georgian warrior, Roman Dolidze. You want me to submit him? That guy. Taking on Loreno Staropoli. And we have got an 8-1 Georgian warrior taking on 9-3. Now, Roman is a big power striker, man. This guy, he's a world-class jiu-jitsu player who's a physical beast. I'm convinced he was on the roids at some point before he made his transition to MMA. He's got a nasty kicking game, though. He likes to do that thing where he mixes up legs and head. Big head kick when he decides to go for it. He likes to go for low-level submissions is really my only problem with him. His low fight IQ is a problem. He dives on ankle locks. He's hit a couple of them, and it's one of those things where I like it. I like that he goes for the finish, but at the same time, he's given away a couple fights or made a couple fights hairy. They were much closer than they should have been because he's accepted the bottom trying to get a heel hook of some kind on people, and it just doesn't work out for him. In this spot, he's got a decent size advantage. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, and he's got a 50% takedown accuracy. Only shoots about 1.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, but when he shoots those, he generally makes them count. Now, Leonardo Staropoli, this is a kid that everyone thought was going to be a big prospect. A lot of people were really excited about him. He's an aggressive volume striker, likes to throw big power body kicks, but he overcommits on his strikes. He's extremely hittable. People have been able to level change on him. Tim Means comes to mind where he ducks under a big 1-2, gets him to the mat easily because he committed on that power shot, and he just is right there to be hit. He drops his hand, he loads up, and he got hurt badly by Tim Means from, you guessed it, a head kick because he dipped off to the side. He's also only got a 57% takedown defense rating. So this is a guy that I have questions about. Roman Dolidze, I'm scared to back him because of the things he does inside the fight, because of the decisions that he makes, because he could jump off and go for a heel at any point in time during the fight. There's massive questions, but I do think he should win this fight. He's about a minus 140 favorite right now, plus 120 the comeback on the underdog Staropoli. I got to say it's probably a favorite or pass spot, but I don't know that I can trust Dolidze with my money again. And he could absolutely be on the wrong side of a volume striker because he's got that gas issue where he's got so much muscle. If he doesn't get the finish early, he's kind of a sitting duck in the third round. I could see him winning the first, giving up the second, and then Staropoli just taking over in the third with cardio and pace. I do want to shout out our man Tajiki Bey here. I'm the best ever of MMA betting, the one and only. You're welcome. Thank you for the donation and the tip to the show and supporting Pub Sports Radio, my friend. Congratulations on being the GOAT. What do you feel about this fight here, Lucrative Man? Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have too much to say on this one. I think the line is, maybe fairly accurate. Definitely think there's a big path for Staropoli to win this fight. I'm not super high on Dolidze. I did bet Dolidze via decision in his last fight at plus 400 against Trevin Giles. And when that fight was going to decision, I was feeling good about my bet. Not necessarily thought it would win, but I know it was a very close fight. A lot of people scored that for Dolidze, and plus 400 was just a bit ridiculous, right? So I'm happy with that bet.
That was a great bet.
It's funny, right? The bet lost, but it's a good bet. You know, a lot of people who are not, you know, in depth into sports betting, who haven't grown up around the industry or learned, won't understand probably that, you know, if a bet loses, it might still be a good bet. And if a bet wins, it might be a bad bet, right? Because we're thinking about long term. So we want value on the line. And I have to say there's probably a bit of value on Staropoli here. I might call this fight a pick'em. You know, if I was the bookmaker, which also anybody listening to this, if you're a sports bettor and you want to make money long term, pretend to be the bookmakers. That's what I do, right? You pretend to be the bookmakers, you do your film study, and you decide what lines you want to give to these fighters, right? If you make it minus 110 apiece, like I'm doing in this fight, and the fighter is plus 125, that's some value there. Now, how much value do you need to actually bet the line? That's something personal to you, and you can do your studies and decide, right? But there's probably not enough value for me to bet this line at plus 125, but I do think Staropoli has the path to victory here. Now, getting into the actual matchup, the stylistics, Dolidze is obviously a bit more wrestling reliant in this fight than he has been in some fights. I believe that Staropoli is a better striker. He's got more volume than him. I believe he's got a better cardio. And I think that if this fight is a stand-up fight, Dolidze is going to lose. One thing I noticed about Staropoli is that he's very good at defending the takedowns, and he doesn't, he doesn't rest on bottom. But he does still give takedowns up. And what he does give up a lot is clinch control time against the cage. Now, Dolidze is very, very strong against the cage. We saw that in a Trevin Giles fight. He pushed Giles up against the cage, and he was able to keep him there for a long time. So if Dolidze isn't able to get the takedowns on Staropoli, which I believe that he will probably have trouble getting, he might still be able to stall time and push him up against the cage. I don't think Staropoli is very strong up against the cage and not stronger than Dolidze. So the only thing keeping me off Staropoli, because I do think he's got the path to victory with the volume striking, is really that Dolidze can probably grab Staropoli, push him up against the cage, and maybe end the rounds there.
Just muscle him.
Yeah, and we know that the judges score the end of the round way more than the beginning of the round or the middle of the round, yeah? For whatever reason, they do that. So if Dolidze, loses 3 minutes and then gets him up against the cage for a minute and a half, they'll probably give the round to Dolidze. So at the line, I'm not tempted to bet it. It's hard for me to give a prediction in this fight who's going to win. I'm calling it minus 110 a pick'em, which means I don't have a prediction. I'm saying it's 50-50, right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to give a prediction. I'm going to... you know what? There's value on Staropoli. I'll say Staropoli, but look, I think it's a 50-50 fight here, to be honest, man.
I agree with everything you said, man. I absolutely agree with everything you said. This is a gigantic stay away because on this podcast, we do not bet against Georgian warriors. So I can't take Staropoli because I love my Georgians, and I see a very clear path to victory for Roman Dolidze. I think he can win this thing by knockout. I think he can win it by submission. I think he can win it by grinding and just being physical on the feet and muscling Staropoli around the cage. But I absolutely see the chink in the armor. I absolutely see him making a bad decision and letting this kid get back to his feet and then having him gas out and get tired and just get pieced apart for 2 rounds. So I can't trust him with my money. But I'm right there with you. I think it should be a pick'em. The value is on the underdog because of that, but this is a spot where it's too thin for me, man. I'm not taking plus 120. I'm not taking plus 110. I can't trust Dolidze with my money, so I will pass, but I'm going to say Dolidze ends up getting the win. I would be very tempted to sprinkle the Dolidze knockout because we have seen Staropoli dip off to his side. Do you remember when Daniel Cormier dipped off and John Jones got the one knockout of his entire career? Yeah. It seems exactly like that. If Dolidze times it just right, he can land that head kick, and we've already seen him put people down with that thing. So I'm kind of feeling Dolidze by knockout, but not going anywhere from a betting perspective.
Completely agree.
All right. And I do have to shout out to Jiki Bay. Thank you very much for the donation, my friend. I appreciate you. And you're just a winner. And the whole world does, in fact, know it. Yes, even I, the host of the podcast, knows that you are the GOAT. Respect to you, my friend. So thank you for the donation and supporting Pub Sports Radio. We'll look forward to hearing from you in the future. All right. So we're winding down, folks. We have the main event of the evening, but I'm going to tease you just a little bit because we got to hear a word from one of our sponsors. So calming, man. The music, it just gets me every time. You chill out when that one comes on.
You feel hungry as well, man. You got me hungry seeing them burgers.
Dude, I never play that one at the beginning of the podcast. That's an end of the podcast commercial. Yeah. We can't be sitting here salivating for another hour after that one pops on. So, any of you keeping track with me, by the way, the New York Islanders have scored again. It is 3-1, and the two most recent goal scorers are Josh Bailey and JG Pageau, both of which were the men who we have goal score props on. That's a plus 325 and a plus 300. We've got the plus 170 underdog up 2 going into the third period, and we've got the puck line, the reverse puck line, minus 1.5 goals at plus 425. I could have a damn night tonight if this holds, man.
Well done, bro. Maybe you should just stick to hockey, bro.
That's some people were saying, man. I'm highly considering doing a diehard NHL podcast next season if I get what I need to like take this show on the road and go full time. I may damn well splinter off into I like NFL. I bet that degenerately as well. So NFL, NHL, I might do those two. We'll see. I gotta have the time though.
A man of many sports.
MMA takes up too much damn time to do all the study, so I can't have a day job and be doing that other stuff. No. All right, man, here we go. Co-main event. We're back with the big boys. Walt the Big Ticket Harris, 13-9, taking on Marcin Tybura, who is 21-6. We all know Walt Harris, the story surrounding his daughter that was heartbreaking a couple of years ago. This man has big power. He is explosive. He's extremely athletic for a big man, but he struggles in the gas tank area. He does gas out if he can't get the finish in the first round. We've seen problems with that, but his striking is solid. His wrestling is solid. He damn near killed Alistair Overeem and then had the biggest adrenaline dump of all time to end up losing that fight. In my opinion, he's getting a huge step down in competition. We've seen him lose to two of the best at heavyweight in his last 2 fights out, and now he's taking on Marcin Tybura. And honestly, if you look at Walt Harris's fight against Alexander Volkov, a fight where I had one of the biggest bets I've ever made, he looked like he's made some improvements. He's not necessarily just that one-round fighter anymore. He tried to take it slower. He tried to play striking with Alexander Volkov. Now, that was a bad idea because Volkov is the dark horse of the heavyweight division. It didn't pan out well for him, but we're actually seeing some improvements from Walt Harris, and that's something that I think is worth noting. Marcin Tybura is extremely well-rounded. He's got a high fight IQ. He's got a solid jiu-jitsu game, but he relies on really dragging his opponents deep. He's not much of a finisher, especially early. He has to kind of take the beating and survive, which hasn't always panned out well for him. A couple of guys at the heavyweight level have been able to put this guy out on his shield. And his most recent run is over extremely questionable competition. He's one of these guys that I feel like has really done well in the COVID era. He's got some short notice fill-ins, some guys making their UFC debuts, guys that are fighting in the wrong weight class. Like, that's who his most recent run has come over. And now he is entrenched as a favorite over Walt Harris because, let's be real, Harris is a guy that everybody just loves to fade at this point because on paper, we all know exactly how this thing is playing out. Man, I locked in early. I messed up this line. I got 2 units on Walt Harris at plus 135. I would love to have plus 145 in my pocket right now. And I don't know. We'll see how crazy this line gets out of control. Maybe I go 3 units deep. I don't know if I'm that ballsy. I don't know if I'm that confident. But if the line keeps going the wrong direction, I might have to take that shot. Or maybe I'll put a half unit on the KO prop or something. But Todorovic is a guy that I've been trying to fade basically his entire career. I think he's mid-tier at best in the UFC. He doesn't have a future, in my opinion. He's not a title contender. We have seen the best version of Marcin Tybura. It's not getting any better than this, and he's scraping the bottom of the barrel in the UFC right now. Walt Harris is actually showing some improvements. I feel like Walt Harris is turning a corner in his career, and that athleticism, that knockout power, there are some fighters that are able to take that and come back, like Alistair Overeem, a guy that's extremely cerebral the way he approaches MMA. I don't think Marcin Tybura is that guy. Maybe he can survive an explosive rush from Harris, but we've seen him fail in that area before. He's got knockout losses to guys like Augusto Sakai. Shamil Abdurakhimov knocked him out. And then, of course, Derek Lewis got him as well. So he's got some chin issues, in my opinion. And Walt Harris is a guy that, honestly, if he turns that corner just a little bit and takes his time a little bit more, I got a feeling he's going to get that knockout. I'm going to go ahead and call my shot and say round 2. I know everyone's going to say that if you're betting Walt Harris, bet round 1 because that's all he's got. But what he showed me in the Volkov fight, his ability to slow it down just a little bit, I think he takes his time here. I think he's learned his lesson, and I do think that he's leveled up and turned a corner. So I'm taking the dog. I'm going for the upset, and I think that Tybura gets out of round 1, but just barely, and then Walt Harris puts the nail in the coffin in round 2. Tell me I'm wrong, Lucrative.
I'm not going to do it, man. I can't do it. I actually agree with you.
Yes!
You know, I didn't think... Look, I'm not super convicted on Walt Harris winning this fight, right? I think it's a close fight. But again, we always talk about the lines. We talk about where there's value. And I just believe plus 140 is a little bit wide, man. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say something a little bit crazy. I believe Walt Harris can win a decision here over Tybura. That sounds pretty mad, I know. To most people will call me nuts for that. But look, if you remember, I think the cardio issue for Walt Harris is overblown dramatically. I'll tell you why. If you remember, Walt Harris actually won a decision over Andrei Arlovski. He went 3 rounds. He was completely fine. And the reason why no one really talks about that maybe is because that fight got ruled a no contest, right? So if you're wiki capping, if you're going on Walt Harris's record, you look at the no contest, you don't even watch the fight. But if you actually do the research and watch the fight, you will see that he went 3 rounds with Arlovski and won a decision. Who wins decisions against Arlovski these days? Usually you knock him out or you lose, right? Now, Arlovski was a little bit different in that fight. He seemed like he didn't want to engage as much as he did. You know, usually he stays on the outside, but he throws a lot of volume. He didn't throw as much volume in that fight, but that's because Walt didn't let him, because Walt is very dangerous. So he went 3 rounds completely fine there. He wasn't gassed in the 3rd round. Other than that, you know, we see him gassed against some fighters, but that's because he's going crazy trying to get the knockout, right? And obviously you have an adrenaline dump. I mean, he had the whole weight of the world on his shoulders, was what happened to his daughter or his goddaughter against Alistair Overeem, right? So that was probably not only a cardio dump trying to knock out Overeem, but also a mental dump, you know, just a generic, like, he had a lot going into that fight. So for him to gas there, it's not a big, you know, it's not a dramatic thing there, right? So I actually think his cardio is better than what some people think. And yeah, I think the line's a bit wide. Now, do I think Tybura can win this fight? Yeah, man. But again, I think this is a pick'em because I do think there's a big chance Walt Harris knocks out Tybura early. So you have to factor that into the line as well, right? So if Walt Harris knocks out Tybura early, then, you know, there's a big chance of that happening. If it doesn't happen, I don't think he's completely fucked for the next 2 rounds. I still think he has a chance to win one of the next 2 rounds and then win a decision. I looked at Walt Harris' decision as a sneaky play, like I did the lead say in his last fight, plus 400, right? I like to see these sneaky plays, people have angles people won't think of. Walt Harris' decision is like plus 600, look, or plus 500. I'm not saying that is my prediction, Walt Harris decision. I'm just saying that it's an angle that you might want to target for a little bit of a 1/4 of a unit shot, because I do think it is in the pipeline. Look, if it goes to decision, I'm going to favor Tybura because he does throw more volume and I think he's going to be a bit more busier, right? But when you factor in the knockout threat of Walt Harris and then factor in the threat that his cardio isn't actually that bad, athleticism, step down in competition, he's coming off a 2-fight skid, so he knows that he can't lose 3 in a row. He needs to win this fight. There's a lot of good signs in the favor of Walt Harris. I haven't spoke much about Tybura. I won't. We know what we're getting with Tybura. You've done a good job with it there. I'm going to say Walt Harris wins this fight. And the line is coming in on Tybura, meaning that Walt Harris is becoming a bigger underdog. And I might end up pulling the trigger on Walt Harris by the end of this, by the end of this podcast, end of the week. So again, like you always say, if you want to bet Walt Harris, let everybody who hasn't watched this podcast continue to bet Tybura, and then we're going to bet Walt Harris, right? Because if you bet Harris now, we're never going to get the plus 150, plus 160 that we might get. So I hope that gives you a little bit more confidence. I think it's a pick 'em, but yeah, that's why we play the underdog.
It definitely gave me a little bit of confidence, man. I appreciate you and your read on this one. Seriously, that's it's solid, man. It's solid. I already put 2 units on it, and that's because I'm convicted on Walt Harris, and I also think there's a very clear path to victory. I think that his opponent is extremely overrated, and that's me going against the grain. A lot of people are sold on Tybura at this point, and I just am not. I never have been. So it's a combination of the 2 things, and I think that Walt Harris, worst case, should be a pick'em. I would slightly favor Walt Harris. So in that kind of a situation, it's a bigger bet because I think I've got that slightly bigger edge. And like you mentioned, if the line keeps going the way that it does, I may have to put some more on. I may take a shot at that knockout prop. Hell, maybe I'll follow you on that decision prop because I did think about that myself, and that's why I bet it straight rather than betting the knockout. I get that all the time. People go, Clint, if you're betting Walt Harris, you might as well take the knockout prop. And this is one of those ones where I go, no. Let's not get fancy because if I get left out in the cold and have to shred up a couple losing knockout prop tickets, but Walt Harris does the unthinkable and slows down, like I said, I think he's capable of, and beats this man over 15 minutes, I don't want to miss out on that spot. I don't want to chase the value and end up with a losing ticket. I'm more than happy to get the plus money on the guy I feel should be the favorite and just see how it turns out.
And that happens often, right? Like you try and get a little bit too cute with it as opposed to playing it straight up. And you're already getting a plus number. You're not trying to turn a minus 300 Mason Jones into a plus 120 knockout prop, right? You're already getting plus 140. So if you really want to play the knockout, maybe split it. 1 unit on the knockout, 1 unit on the money line. But at the end of the day, don't get too cute. MMA is the craziest game of all time. We saw Fluffy Hernandez submit Rodolfo Vieira. Anybody who says something can't happen, you point them to that fight and the conversation is finished. You know what I mean?
I cashed that ticket, by the way.
Submission?
Not by submission, but I took Fluffy.
Wow,
I thought he was going to knock him out.
If you cash submission, that guy Tajik Bey who said he's the GOAT, I think he'd have to chime in and say, no, you know what, Clint, you're the GOAT because there he is.
Speaking of Tajik Bey, I've got Makwan Amirkhani live with me on the show this evening, so he apparently thinks you look like Makwan. So thank you again for the donation to Tajik Bey. All right, we're main event time, folks. We're going to break it down for you. I've got one last sponsor to go ahead and shout out for us, and then we will get straight on into this bad boy.
Where's the bang bang, Preston? Come on.
I can't breathe.
Pub Sports Radio. Come find us in Southtown 101. Subscribe on YouTube and all platforms where podcasts are found.
Yes, that is what our live streams look like here on Pub Sports Radio. So make sure you hang out. My boy Boston Nick always holding down the fort for all the MMA action. So PFL, Bellator, UFC, we're always live streaming, doing companion and live betting casts during these fights. So make sure you come hang out with us. Man, let's talk about this main event. We've got Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Augusto Sakai. Rozenstruik is 11-2. Sakai is 15-1. Jairzinho is training at ATT, which we've talked about a couple times on this show. It's a great camp, and I think they can do some wonderful things with this man. There's not much to say beyond raw power. Like, Jairzinho is the number 2, maybe I'll give Derek Lewis that spot, the number 3 knockout artist in heavyweight right now. He's extremely low volume, lots of kickboxing experience, and explosive as all hell. We saw in the Alistair Overeem fight, he cost me that night by getting a knockout win with literally 5 seconds left on the clock. One of the worst beats I've ever taken in MMA. And you really just got to function with this guy's power. You have to skip around the outside. You have to make him play your game, mix in the takedowns, stay safe at range. You make one mistake and you're dead against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Augusto Sakai is big for heavyweight. I tweeted this out earlier today. If you look at the stats, they're wrong. Alistair Overeem is the unit by which we measure these men's height. They've got Jairzinho Rozenstruik listed as 6'4" and Sakai listed at 6'3". Sakai has got a good 3 inches or so on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He's listed as shorter. He's going to be the much bigger man come cage time. He's a volume striker. He likes to play from the outside. He's got a nice long jab. Very strong in the clinch. Good big clinch knees, but he struggles with grapplers. We saw in the Overeem fight, there was a simple trip takedown that he simply could not defend, and he got put on his back and TKO'd against the savvy veteran. I don't know if that's going to be much of an issue here. I don't see Jairzinho going to the takedown. I don't think either of these guys are really going to go for that very much. Jairzinho has excellent takedown defense. It's hard to get inside on him and get him to the floor. Sakai probably the better wrestler, maybe a bit of an advantage there, but it's going to be dangerous to close that range and get into that area where you can get him to the mat. And again, it's a 25-minute main event fight, so there's a ton of time. In this kind of a spot, man, I kind of lean with Jairzinho. Anytime you give me somebody who is going to engage and you've got 25 minutes, I'm going to take the raw power knockout artist. And I know maybe that's the wrong way to look at this. I know Jairzinho has been kind of ousted lately because of the way that he fights, but I don't think that Sakai can stay safe and disciplined the way that Alistair Overeem did for a full 25 minutes. We've seen him slow down. We've seen him get tired. And as soon as you give up one opportunity, Jairzinho cracks that chin and puts you down. There's been a lot of love in the betting community. I'm seeing a bunch of people on Augusto Sakai. And even though that is the case, this is still a pick'em price tag. The line hasn't moved that much. And I feel like smart people may be keeping it relatively even right now. So I'm kind of on the Jairzinho side. I may be placing this bet, but I'm waiting to see once again if this line will flip, because if I can get even money or plus money on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I will definitely be taking a poke on it there. Talk to me about the main event, man. How do you side on this one?
So just first want to say, if you're waiting to get plus money on Jairzinho inside the distance is plus money. You can get that plus money right now, right? Sure. And, you know, we just spoke about not getting too cute, but sometimes you can get cute. And with this fight, I think we can be cute, because I don't know anyone out there in their right mind who says Jairzinho is going to out-volume, he's going to outwork, he's going to get a decision win over Augusto Sakai. I'm almost certain that's not going to happen. I believe Jairzinho's path to victory is the knockout, in like it is in every single one of his fights. He's knocked out every single person he's fought in the UFC, except for the people he's lost to. In other words, in every single win, he's got a knockout. He's never won a decision. He never would have won a decision. The only time he almost got close to it was against Alistair Overeem, and he was being beat, you know, up until the last 1 second of that fight. And then obviously he got the knockout. So he got knocked out against Francis Ngannou. He got knocked out against Alice. Sorry, he got knocked out against. He got beat by Cyril Gane. That's who it was. But the thing is with them two fighters, right? Ngannou, we can throw that out the window because that means nothing. It's Ngannou. He bum rushed him. He got knocked out. The Cyril Gane fight is the only other fight he's ever lost in his career, right? And the way he lost that fight is that Cyril Gane was on the outside, right? He's a very cerebral fighter. He's kind of similar to Alistair Overeem in the fact that he thinks about what he does. He sticks to the outside. If he gets close, he only gets close for a minute. He throws a shot or two, and then he gets straight back out. He doesn't throw extended combinations where he's going to be inside the pocket unloading. Cyril Gane's a clever fighter, right? So he was able to stay at distance and dominate Jairzinho, right?
Exactly.
Alistair Overeem did the same thing. He stayed on the outside. Every now and then he would go in. He'll go for a takedown. He never stayed on the inside. Jairzinho wasn't able to get to him until the last minute of the fight, the last 30 seconds of the fight. So we know the way to beat Jairzinho, right? You need to be all the way out and just pick him apart. The thing about it is that Augusto Sakai doesn't fight like that. Augusto Sakai likes to get in your face. He likes to pump volume. You know, he won't pick his shots. He will just throw lots of shots, right? He's got very good volume. So I do think that in the only fights that Jairzinho has lost, or he looks like he was going to lose, Ngannou, Gan, and the other dude, Overeem, right? They fight completely differently to Sakai. Anyone who fights like Sakai would fight, like Arlovsky when he rushed in, they get knocked out. Even Junior Dos Santos, right? He wasn't able to stick on the outside and he eventually got knocked out. So, look, I don't really know. Look, I'd like to pick Sakai, right? So, because in these spots, you really want to bet the fighter who is going to volume more, right? In a 5-round fight, you don't want the fighter who's KO reliant. I believe Jairzinho is KO reliant. You almost never want to bet on a fighter if they're only KO reliant, unless it's like Francis Ngannou, right? Other than him, you don't want to bet on a fighter who's KO reliant. On the other hand, I don't think I can bring myself to bet Sakai because we have seen him slow down in that 3rd round. We know Jairzinho can go 5 rounds. He's done it twice before. He didn't look tired in them fights, in my opinion. He actually got a knockout in the final seconds in one of them. We haven't seen Sakai go 5 rounds, to my knowledge. Have we seen him go 5 rounds? I don't believe.
Maybe in Bellator?
Yeah. So in his last fight, he went 5 rounds with Overeem, and he got knocked out against Overeem.
He kind of went 5 rounds.
Yeah. So he got into the 5th round, and he got knocked out as soon as that round began, and he did look tired in the championship rounds there, right? When he fought, who was it? When he fought Andrei Arlovsky, he looked a bit tired in that 3rd round as well. So I think Jairzinho's probably got better cardio. So look, man, I don't hate to bet on Jairzinho if you bet him. I would say that, you know, maybe just bet him inside the distance because you'll get a little bit of a better line. The bookies are not stupid. They're onto it. The line's pretty similar. So maybe you just want to take the money line just in case Jairzinho drops him in 3 of the 5 rounds and then he wins a decision, which is, you know, it's MMA. Fluffy submitted Vieira. As we said, anything can happen. My final prediction, I'm going to have to go with Sakai. Just morally, I have to go with Sakai because he's going to pump out the more volume, you know. Jairzinho's KO reliant, but if I'm being honest, I kind of envision Jairzinho possibly landing a kill strike. But I'm going to go with Sakai, but as you can tell, not very confident either way.
I feel you, man. And I do want to bring up one last thing. Again, shout out my guy James Lynch, always doing the best interviews in the game. Spoke to Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and one thing that he said coming off of his last fight was, I need to be first. And we talked about how he's just too low volume. This dude's a professional kickboxer. He's got tons of experience, and I think he settled into his knockout power in MMA. I think he kind of was smelling his own brand for a little bit there, and I want to compare him to none other than Francis Ngannou. If you remember, this guy was on a freaking rocket ship to the title, and then he got upset by Stipe, and if you recall his fight with Derek Lewis, the worst fight in UFC history. His confidence was shot. He had nothing to offer. He was super low output. He was scared of the knockout, wouldn't engage. We saw the exact same thing play out with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He took the knockout from Francis Ngannou, and then he let himself get out-volumed by Ciryl Gane. I know he got the knockout over Junior Dos Santos in between those, but that actually reinforced his I can knock anybody out mindset. You know what I mean? He got a quick knockout against a legend like Junior and thought, I'm just going to knock this Ciryl guy out too. I think that Jairzinho was a little bit shell-shocked. I think he was a little overconfident. I think he was a little bit cocky. And I think he's going to reset and he's going to learn some things here. I do think he's going to have some more volume. And I also think Augusto Sakai is an opponent that's going to leave opportunities. You know, he is not a brick wall. He doesn't shell up and defend extremely well. And when he fights, he's a bit of a wild man. He crashes the pocket. He comes forward with his hands down sometimes. He'll clinch you up and look for big knees, leaving his chin up in the air. There's so many opportunities for Jairzinho to land the shot. I think it's a buy low opportunity on Rozenstruik, and I do think that we've kind of seen the best of Augusto Sakai. I'm not expecting a ton of improvements. I don't know that he's going to get drastically better from what he is now. So I do think I'll side with Jairzinho, and I may take the bet. I probably will play the money line because kind of like we talked about with playing fancy, I don't think there's a big enough value gap there. -120 to +150, like it's it's just to the point where it's not quite enough. If he was plus 225 by knockout, now we're talking. Now I'll play that line. But plus 150 versus minus 120, I just don't think it's enough for me to roll the dice just in case, man. I don't want to be on the wrong side of a bad bounce.
Fair enough, man.
I do want to shout out our guy in the chat. Don't ask, don't tell. Always supporting the Pub Sports Radio. Forget Dogecoin. We're going to the moon here on Pub Sports Radio. And actually, don't forget Dogecoin. I like Dogecoin. I have some Dogecoin. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us this evening. There you have it. That's all of UFC Vegas 28. We put a 2-hour podcast in the books there for you. I'll get timestamps up as soon as humanly possible. I promise you. Everyone always yells at me about not having them up instantaneously after the show is over. Thank you to my guy, Lucrative, for coming on the show and hanging out with us today. It was a blast, man. I'm glad we agreed and disagreed on a few spots. That always makes the show more fun. The floor is yours, my friend. Let the people know where they can find you, where they can follow you, where they can get your information. Shout out whoever you want to at this point, man. It's yours.
Yeah, man. Easy. I love doing it. 2 hours. We could probably talk for 4 hours. As you know, you could probably tell I can talk about this shit all day. You know what I mean? I love it. Thanks for having me on. Definitely got to do it again sometime. Can find me anywhere, man. Lucrative MMA. You know, Google me, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I'm active on all social medias. LucrativeMMABetting.com. We've been smashing it this year. I'm already up 49 units, and you know we're not even halfway through the year. So hopefully we get that 100-unit year this year. Last year we won 60 units. The year before that, 99 units. So yeah, man, to the moon, like you said.
That's insanity. That's awesome. And that's why I'm always trying to bring some of the best on the show here for you, because I'm an absolute degenerate. I'll tell you what I bet. I'm never telling you what to bet. So listen to the smarter people than me that come on the show. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who spent your holiday evening here with us tonight. I do just want to say, go Islanders, because this game isn't over quite yet. Everybody have a wonderful week. Most of you probably got the day off today, so a short week is always good. Look out for the Total Takedown, where I go back over the fight and talk overs and unders. Watch out for the post-weigh-in show, the undefeated post-weigh-in show on Friday, where we recap the weigh-ins and let you know who had good and bad weight cuts. And then, of course, all the other content creators here at Pub Sports Radio, we're doing a lot of cool shit absolutely for free. So make sure you subscribe, like the show already if you haven't. And, hey, you know what? Just have a great week. Keep your chin up. Keep grinding. You'll get there. Have a good one, everybody. Let's roll.